Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 Committee Whole meeting to order. It's approximately 5:49 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Shelley? Here. Councilman Burgess? Here. Councilman Roth?
Here.
Vice Mayor Faircloth?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals, Mr. Manager? Let's approve the minutes from March 8, 2016. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. If everyone's not opposed, let's move tab 12 up. We have the after-school program at FICA Williams. Anyone opposed? Okay, so tab 12, Mr. Manager.
Mayor, this Pedro, did you want to introduce the group that is asking for permission?
Hang on, I'm sorry. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay, Pedro.
Mayor, we had met with this group, Sweet Vine. We met with Ms. Tonette over at Parks and Rec twice already. So historically, we used to have a after-school care and summer camp program at FICA Williams, which was removed. So we've been trying to get different programs there. So we felt we'd bring this to the council for direction on how to move forward with the group.
Okay. Can everyone hear us okay? Okay. So I don't know who's, it sounds a little quiet on this side too, so if somebody could turn it up just a slight bit. Yes, ma'am, your name and address for the record, please.
Tonette Collier. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Sweet Vine. My address is 20221 Southwest 113th Court, Miami, Florida 33189.
Thank you. Can you explain a little about what you're asking for?
I'm hearing impaired in my left ear, so you would have to speak a little bit louder.
Just tell us a little bit about your program and what you're asking for.
I'm asking our program is Sweet Vine. We're nearly 20 years old, we're trying to get into the FICA Williams Center and continue our services. We're 501c3. I have my board chairman here and also Stephanie Silvestri, one of our primary funders from the Children's Trust. She's the chief program and information officer. But we're in dire straits for our own place. Right now we're working out of St. John's, and because the state mandated, is under the Department of Children and Families, the mandates where all organizations have to be licensed under the Children and Families, and we are. And because of that, we had to relocate from our own facility. And even though we do thank St. John's, but having a place of your own is really a priceless position to be in. And we have right now over 150 kids a day in our after-school program. I must admit our waiting list is 90 children. We could not get but 14 of those 90 kids into the program. We have a summer camp. We do so many activities. I believe you all have the report that I submitted to the city back in January, and it kind of details everything our agency is about. I'm a believer of educating children. We have all types of activities and exercises. I even provided a schedule so that you can see some of the things that we do. We do community events. We do lots of field trips. And I just want to be able to have all of our kids in one general area, utilize the Roby George Park for fitness, and just continue from where we are. We're one of the top organizations in Miami-Dade County with a percentage between 95 and 100% in terms of program performance, fiscal, and everything. I do have a copy of our 501c3, our most recent audit statement, and we're active in Florida, the SunBiz report, as well as the state charitable certification that we can solicit for funds in the state of Florida. Like I said, the Children's Trust is our primary funder, and they're in support of us trying to relocate. And I really do need the council and you guys' support. I promise if you give us the opportunity that we would take care of your facility. We can change our budget around to include a janitor and do some of the things that you would require of us and anything else in terms of code. But one of the key things that we have to do is to make sure that DCF approves us to relocate, and that's meaning meet the inspection. And I'm almost certain that that would be no problem.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Let me get some council questions. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for you and for all that you do for the children. I guess one of my questions is since we're going to be using a Homestead facility, is this program strictly for the children of Homestead, or is it for all of Dade County? Or how do we ensure that, I guess, the majority of our children here can be taken care of?
I would say 90 to 95% of the children reside at Homestead, mostly Homestead and Florida City. We service about 15 schools in this area. We pick them up from school and we transport them to our facility. So I would say a good 90 to 95% of our children are from the Homestead area.
So your rosters are already full of what you would accept for the summer, or you still have openings?
Full. In the summer, the Children's Trust allow us to have 50 additional children. So we are approved for 200 kids in the summer and 150 in after school. But if we had the space, we could have even more. Right now where we are, DCF approved us for 210 children. And that's about 7,400 square feet. Mm-hmm. But everybody is kind of like branched off into different areas on the school campus. And to get everybody together, it makes it easier on staff. It makes it easier on me. And to see my kids every day, because 2 o'clock comes, I'm with the kids. Everybody knows that. But to have that opportunity to be able to have us all in one place, do big events. We did a e-fair at St. John's, and everybody loved it, and the city participated. Day of the Young Child, just this weekend at Miami-Dade College. We do a lot of things, and one of my plans is to bring in NASA, which is one of our partners, to do more STEM exercises, because in the school system, science on our end is very minimal, and I'm really pushing STEM activities with kids. But if you guys are Facebook savvy and can look at Facebook, you can see some of the most recent work Sweetvine is doing with our kids, thanks to the Children's Trust for allowing us to do that. And we also get funded from the county and Macy's, and then we have private donors as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to clarify before, I know you all have other questions. I just wanted to kind of bolster Pedro's point, which is when we got this request, we weren't sure whether you wanted to entertain this and or do an RFP. And so before we negotiated a contract with them, we just wanted to make sure that that was your direction. So assuming you're comfortable with this, we have a lot of due diligence that we haven't done, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware that that's why they're here.
We're talking about direction to give you. You still have to go back and negotiate some agreements. Okay, yeah. Okay, Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Estrada. Currently, we have an RFP out for services for seniors to be ran out of the Fife Williams Community Center. I believe I saw an email about, probably Carlos.
Good evening. That was through the CDBG program. We put it out twice because the first time we received nobody, and the second time we did receive one respondent, which we're still looking at and doing our due diligence on. And you're right, that was for activities for senior citizens at the FICO Williams.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't want us to forget about that, because I'm still very much interested in utilizing that space for a program for seniors, because there is a gap in services for that. But I'm assuming that this will be during the day for the seniors, and this program will run starting at 2:30 during the to 7. Right. But during the summer, it starts at 7:30. But in the summer, your programming starts at 7:30.
From 7:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon. But again, we stay open until 6 because I have parents that get off
Right.
like 5 o'clock. But this is what we're trying to do. We need our own place.
No, I get that. Let me just finish asking the question first. I get that. We've met and you've explained everything to me. I'm just trying to ensure that we have enough space because I don't want the senior programming that this council had approved to kind of fall by the wayside because we're utilizing the space for your program. So that leads me to my next question. How much space are you asking for?
Well, according to DCF, it's 35 square feet indoors per child. And we also wanted to use the Roy George Park to do fitness, and that's 25 square feet per child. That is the rule, that is the law. So when DCF comes in, not only look at other things, the building is suitable for children
Right.
5 and above, but they're gonna be looking at the square footages. Can we accommodate these children? And we do have kids have documented disabilities, so we want to make sure that they're able to engage with other kids and we can meet their needs as well.
Do you have you had any other issues in facilities that you're currently at or you have previously been in?
The issue where we are, and I must admit again that we're very thankful to St. John's for opening up to us. St. John's is a partner organization with Sweetvine. We always, every summer, utilize their facility to do our Freedom School.
Mm-hmm.
When DCF came into the picture, the dynamics changed. And that put us in a position where we either A, take a significant cut from the trust to serve only 42 children, and when you break that down according to staff-client ratios under the Children's Trust, then we would only be able to serve 30 children, opposed to 150. So St. John said, well, come on over, and they worked with us. We worked together, and we continue to work together. But me, I just like having my own. When the kids walk in, they can see their work on the wall, they can see their science activities, the parents can come in and see what their kids doing. They have, and we've always been set up where as the children in their classroom, they have their bookshelves with all their items and their computers, they have all their things there. Whereas now where we are, we're called the book bag and bin people because we have to transport this stuff every day, which is a lot of stress on my staff.
And I totally can understand that. And there's definitely a need for the programming, particularly in the summer, so that our most vulnerable population of students can have access to. You run a quality program. You've been around for a long time. You supported our chili cook-off. Sweet Vine was one of the winners in the Youth Council's chili cook-off. So this is something that I would definitely support in our community. I just don't want it to adversely impact our ability to provide programming for our seniors. So if the council does decide to move forward with that, I just want you to be cognizant of that so that if they both can utilize the space as opposed to Sweet Vine and not our senior programming.
And may I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the senior program going to be year-round or just like the regular school year?
Well, we don't have all the information for that, just
Okay.
as much as the funds that we have permit. But it'll definitely be during the day.
Mhm.
During the day.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate everybody.
We got some more questions.
Yes.
We got some more questions. Anything else, Vice Mayor?
Questions coming from, okay.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. And I have a series of questions. One is related to staff. There seems to be quite a few organizations that want to utilize FICA Williams in this kind of sense. And I hear, I've never met with you, I don't think I've ever even spoken with you, ma'am, within the community. But there are several other organizations that have just credible services also. How do we determine the use so that, because it is a community center, and I hear the applicant, I hear the person keep saying having something of my own, you know, how would this affect the whole usage of the community center of FICA Williams?
How would it?
I'm not talking with you.
Okay.
Talk with staff.
Pedro?
Well, Councilman, if we were to enter into an agreement with any of these organizations, we wouldn't be able to enter into an agreement with an alternate. Like, we wouldn't be able to run 2 sweet vines there because of the space. So we would essentially have to enter into an agreement with one organization. The other 2 did submit their proposals last week, and we've reached out to them to set up meetings, but they have not responded.
Right, so what I'm saying is, because there is such a demand to use the center, would it not probably be best to do an RFP for the best program to do instead of, because we're put into an awkward situation where we are essentially not providing the process to allow persons to bid to use the facility for the best program for the community. So I've not, other than what I've got in the pack, I've not had an opportunity to look at any of the additional information that Sweetvine has stated here on the record. But I don't know how we come out on the other end to be fair to other organizations that want to utilize the facility and not pass any kind of sense of biasness on organizations, because they all, at the end of the day, are doing the same thing. And then for staff, how would you all determine perhaps combining some of these programs, if they're even willing? Is that some of your questions that you ask? Are you willing to combine some of the programs that it may have a total effect, not on just one organization, but all the organizations? And still, with Vice Mayor point to the seniors, you know, how would office space work? How would, you know, to run those kind of separate programs, how would that, have you all thought about space and those programs and this program, and how are you all going to handle office space and all of that kind of stuff?
Like we mentioned, we had only received this one proposal. That's why we brought it to council to seek direction. Those other 2 that you just brought up just came up within this week.
That's not my question.
But
My question is, how have you all thought about as staff, if you're going to have a seniors program, and then you're going to have this program, or any other program that provides the same kind of services, how are you all going to facilitate times of who's using what, office space, what part of the building is going to be utilized, how many, you know, so that takes some time to try to figure out. So what is your, how are you all?
all of that would be negotiated into the contract. We would take into account what's being used and what's available or not available.
But, Councilman, if I can add, one of the reasons we brought this to you today was we were looking for some policy direction on actual utilization of the facility, and certainly an RFP would be one way to find out what organizations are out there, and then you can also, it'll help determine whether there's conflicts in slots, or whether, you know, depending on the organization and their proposal for utilization, we'll have a better idea of how well to maximize the amount of hours that are in the day and with the organizations. So if you'd like us to do an RFP for the facility, we can do that and try to expedite it. However, since we had this one solid proposal, we thought if there was a definite opinion about wanting this specific group, then we wouldn't go forward with the RFP. However, if you're not sure what other organizations are out there that might also want to utilize the facility, because it's not just the organization, it's also what are they offering in terms of using the space, how many people they're serving, where they come from, whether they're Homestead residents or not Homestead residents, how many days and how many hours, all those things, you know, we're not going to be able to compare unless we have a process.
May I speak?
Right, and that's what I'm concerned about, is the
Understand.
process. And that if the process is going to be fair, then the best way to do that is to do an RFP, so that it's a competitive process and adding the best product for what the community perhaps could be looking for. And what I would not like to see is an arbitrarily, you know, unilateral decision made on one organization, then we have these other organizations out there that we've not even considered or had given them opportunity to present in some kind of process form.
I understand.
But this is nothing against Sweetvine, it's just about the whole process. And and we've had, with FICA Williams, You know, we've had several organizations in there. I mean, it's just, you know, so are we looking, what are we charging per square footage as rental?
Our fees are not based by square footage, they're based by the room. So, for instance, each small room
But
is
you can set up an
25.
RFP how you want to set it, what you're looking for as far as the scope. I mean,
And also, the RFP would also be tailored to what you're all looking for, too, in terms of what kind of services. The direction you could provide us is that you want the RFP to be only about senior services, or only about youth services, or
I'm
anything
looking for
else.
something that will coexist without so much using the entire facility for one aspect of the program, and then we have additional services that we could provide. But I'm looking for hopefully something that can coexist and meets the Vice Mayor's objective along with the rest of our objectives, and then also, you know, program that has been needed. My concern is that with Sweetvine is that I'm not sure the quality of, I've never seen any of their product, never seen any of their, what they do, never met with them, never, I don't even, this is my first time actually even trying to figure out what are we trying to do, or what are we trying to facilitate, so.
And nor have I, to be honest with you, so the question we didn't have answered was, is this an organization that the council had already determined they wanted, and then we wouldn't go through a process? If you want to go through a process, we would typically have a process with them before bringing them to you. So we're happy to do that, and particularly if you want the RFP and you're looking for youth services a portion of the day and senior services a portion of the day, we can keep that in mind, because we have the senior services portion already RFP'd with proposals. And if it's the youth, if it's youth services that you're looking for, then we can get the RFP out on the street and then examine the proposals and then bring back a recommendation for you.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Shelley?
Councilman Williams kind of brought up some of the concerns that I have, and that is, I don't know that I have enough information in front of me to make any type of real decision, other than to say I think it's good for us to find programming to go into that facility, to go into FICO Williams for the community. And so I support that 100%. You know, I support finding a program to go in there as soon as possible, so that we're not delaying the programming that needs to be provided to the community. But I don't know enough about the current program with Sweetvine to weigh in one way or another. I think I'd asked Dennis that question earlier, and that was, have you guys vetted the program? And the answer was no, not yet, because you were waiting for direction from us at the council level. So, you know, at this point, I couldn't endorse this particular organization and say just go forward with it. I'm always for a process, so I support Councilman Williams' concept of finding out what are the alternatives out there, so that we can figure out what best fits the area, and figure out maybe we can get multiple programs in there of multiple variety, which will serve all aspects of the community versus only choosing one. So, you know, for me, I just need more information before I could make a decision going forward.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maldonado?
May I ask a
Thank you, Mayor.
Let us finish this
Okay.
discussion, and you'll be able to speak.
I also echo some of the concerns that's been brought up, because one of the questions I wrote right away is what's the discussion of programming? Have we even had that discussion as a council or through staff, or has anyone gotten direction and to see what kind of programming should go into the community center? I know that at some point in the past there were some organizations there, they're no longer there. I don't even know, you know, what's the usage, how is it being used today? I guess the only thing I would add onto what everyone else is saying here is, has the community been approached as well in regards to what programming should go in place? And I think that it's very important for representatives of the community to also know what's happening and have some input in what's needed there. I mean, we know where the FICO Williams is. We know that we need programs there. It's just the one thing I'd want this council to be mindful, and staff, is just to take the community in consideration and have some input from them and what should be the programming, because we've mentioned here what is the programming, what program do we need in there, and so I know the city manager and staff is going to work on that, and I concur with that. And my first question is, what is the best usage for the FICA Williams Center? So that's the question I'll bring up. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Question. How long has the FICA Williams been operating without programming?
I would have to say about 2 years now, more or less.
It's been a long time. And we've had a conversation about programming at the FICA Williams Community Center, but as a council, we have not provided any direction as it relates to programming. And for what I understand, Sweet Vine has approached you a long time ago as it relates to programming at the FICA Williams Community Center. And I'm all for a process. I'm fair and impartial. I'm all for process. But I think as a council, we need to not be so reactive all the time when someone comes to us asking us to utilize our facilities and then say, oh, wait, we have to talk about programming. We should be a little bit more proactive in that pursuit. But if that is the will of this body to put this out for RFP, I totally support that. But with the understanding that this process will not be finalized in time for summer, and I understand they want to start this program in the summer. So with that said, I'm comfortable with moving with the majority of the body.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Williams?
Yes. With that said, thank you so much, Mayor. Currently, Sweet Vine is at which location now?
St. John's.
St. John. And how long is your agreement with St. John?
Our agreement ends August 31st this year.
August 31st. So will end August 31st this year?
Yes.
Okay. So
And we don't want to renew the lease agreement. We've agreed
Understand.
to do.
So you do have a facility that can operate through the summer?
Yes.
Just not the capacity that you would like?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So you're not coming to us based on that you don't have a place to go. You just need a bigger facility and in order to carry on with your summer program. Is that not right?
If we can go in the summer and DCF approves us and we can go in this summer, we could do it there, 200 children.
So what will be your maximum capacity where you at sent on to August 31st?
Currently, how many are in your class at St. John's? How many?
Ooh, I would say the number is about 55 right now. We have.
Okay, here's my concern, is that you do have a place that you can facilitate your summer program. It's not like you don't have a place. This will give us the time of process to be able to execute, I think, what I'm understanding, to do an RFP process. But it was my concern that I was under the impression that you all did not have anywhere to go for the summer. So if that is the case, then this will, and I'm not being reactive at all, other than trying to find what is the best program that can facilitate the community needs. So if you already have a place or spot until August 31st, even though you don't want to renew your lease, this will probably give us opportunity to do the RFP process so that we can, hopefully by that time, if your program is the best for what the process is, not having no problem supporting that process and supporting your organization. But I cannot give leeway of support to one organization and then not have given due weight to provide other opportunities for other organizations that can provide services as well. This is very not a contentious topic, but it's a very sensitive topic that I think we really should be cautioned about, unilaterally picking certain organizations, because history would recall that when this process happened, the way we got empty at FICA Williams for 2 years ago was because of process. So hopefully we're not trying to make those mistakes again, and that we would continue to vet each program, each organization, so we don't fall back into another 2 years of inactivity within that FICA Williams Community Center. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Manager, I think that, consensus is, more towards the process at this particular point. I tend to agree that follow the rules that we kind of used when the council said, let's go for some senior programs, and you took that and went out and started a process to see what you could attract into. And obviously, Sweet Vine would be one of them already at the table, prepared to engage in the process. But I agree that I think there should be, I think it's been articulated by most everyone.
Okay.
Let's get this process going rather quickly. And obviously, they're prepared and at the table. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do understand you guys want to go through an RFP process, but you're looking at one of the best organizations in Miami-Dade County, right here before you. Just because I'm the founder and executive director, I'm not here pulling your leg. This is a very serious matter. That's why in January, I submitted this report. I called, and initially when I wrote the proposal to the Children's Trust, and I do have my chief program and information officer from the Children's Trust here. We are one of the best organizations. I have 90 kids on our waiting list. But I submitted this report, this proposal to you all back in January. Prior to that, we spoke with Parks and Recs. When we wrote the proposal to the Children's Trust, mind you, it took me 2 months. And we spoke to Parks and Recs during that process with hopes of putting FICO Williams Center in as our primary site. But because the city was not ready at the time to address FICO Williams Center, we could not come to you all with this proposal. So with that said, I waited my 2 years. It sat for 2 years. And when the golden time came, I submitted this to Parks and Recs. I understand the RFP process. I participate in them all the time. I write grants for Sweet Vine. I've been doing it for 20 years. If you all are Facebook savvy, please look on Facebook at sweetvine.inc. Sweet Vine Inc. In this proposal is the link to our Facebook site. That is going to show you the most recent information about our program. We are fiscally sound. I do have my 2014 audit, clean, no findings. We're ready. And I understand the process. I understand Mr. Williams, and I understand that is the best way to go. Trust me, I will be the first one to submit. But I just want you all to know that when I addressed this with the city, I started in January with hopes of having good news to be able to move in August. That is why we're starting this early. We have a diverse group of children and parents that we need our own home. There is no doubt. Sometimes I feel like I'm out of place because I can't perform to 100% like I normally perform. Everything is all here and there. But if I have it all together, it makes my performance at 100%, not 97, 100%. So I'm here in dire straits, and I understand everything, and I do respect each and every one of you. But at the end of the day, we still need and we want to be in Homestead. We want to be a part of the family. We want to be active. We want you all to say, oh, well, call Sweet Vine. They'll have the kids here, and I will. Oh, well, Sweet Vine can do X, Y, Z, and we will. But I just need you all to understand that time is very crucial. You got the best.
Let me ask you a question. Length of time, the process, the RFP process, how long, how short can you make this process? Because the key is we need to open it up for other groups to have the opportunity to know that we're getting ready to do something like this, and give them an opportunity to be heard and seen. So give me, what's your idea of timeline?
I'd like to defer over to Jerry.
Mayor, through the manager, I would put the solicitation out for at least 30 days. That way we give ample time for other organizations that are out there to find out about the solicitation and submit their proposals.
30 days
Minimum.
to be advertised.
Yes, sir.
Get it back after 30 days, whoever applies, how long for you to review and come back to the council with a recommendation?
Depending on when we go out and when the council meetings are scheduled, I would give it 2 to 3 weeks after we get the responses back.
So theoretically, we could be looking at this before the end of August. We could have some sort of closure of this before August, in theory.
Absolutely, but it's a lot. There's other moving parts in terms of the scope that'll be supplied by the department and, advertising, things like that. But yes, it can be done.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. I'm turning you off. Mr. Williams.
Yes, Mayor, in closing, ma'am, your program could be the very best. I'm not wrestling with your productivity of your program. All I'm saying is that, and it may be that you just are in the at this point in time juncture of transition, but there's no indictment on your program that you're the best. I think if throughout the RFP process, you would be able to exemplify what your intentions are and the very best programs that you would do. So it is not any thing on your program or your existence or how long you've been in the community or any of that. It's simply about for me, person saying I didn't know that it was even open to provide a service for, and you started your ball out rolling, ahead of time as you have gone over your timeline. But as a policymaker, staff cannot dictate to, even though you've submitted your items, they can't go anywhere until we have determined a policy decision on if that's what we even want. So I commend you for what you have done in your proactiveness, but it stopped at that point in time to where staff has to bring it back to us to determine, and it just so happens you and your program perhaps initiated that start. So there's no slight on your professionalism or you not being able to access the building or any of that. It's just I want to make sure as the representative of the Southwest area, and FICA Williams is in my area, and I would like to be able to have some kind of thought that the process was open to everybody that's going to provide services for all of Homestead and all of our children that are out there. And that's simply the end, and that's simply what my agenda is to make sure. And you could be the only one that applied. We don't know. You could be. I mean, I want you to succeed. I want you to do that. But I just got to go through this. I believe that the council needs to go through this process, so that when questions are thrown at us or accusations are made, then we can say we went through a process. You did not apply, so you have no legitimacy to a claim that does not exist. So that's all I'm trying to do. Trying to keep Sweet Vine out of the paper. Trying to keep us into a tact where we have provided a process and it was fair. That's it. But no doubt about who you are and what you can do and what you have already contributed to the community. Not a doubt. Not questioning that at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And then we're going to move on. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Then we're going to move on.
I just wanted to share with Mr. Williams that, Councilman Williams, I do thank you for your statement. And honestly, I agree. Because you don't want anything to come back at the end of the day and say, oh, well, Homestead didn't do a fair process. I understand that. Trust me, I've been doing it for 20 years. I understand, and I know that you want the best in there. But I just want to make it clear, you got the best in front of you. I just want to make it clear.
Thank you.
You're in my mind.
Yes, yes.
Endure us for this process.
Mm-hmm. And if any of the documents you guys wish to have, I have them here.
You can leave them with the clerk if you want to, and she'll get them to us. Mr. Manager, do you need any further direction from the council? You're clear on the process. Okay.
And
Thank you.
One last thing, won't take but 1 minute. I want all the Sweet Vine staff and parents and children to stand up and say thank you to the council, the mayor and the vice mayor. Let's go.
Thank you.
I got some.
Thank you.
All right. You guys have a wonderful evening, a blessed day.
Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. To the manager, I would just like to make sure that we keep this process moving quicker than slower. I know that
Yes.
procurement has a lot on their table, but I would like to move this as quickly as we could, especially seeing how one of the parties that's already interested does have a deadline. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess. Two. Wait. Okay, we'll go back to tab 2, which is waiver of fees. Let's give them just a second to get out. Tab 2. Mr. Manager, you want to take tab 2, waiver of fees?
Yes, Mayor. 3 Virtues Organization, Inc. is requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to waive usage fees in the amount of $340 for the use of Harris Field Pavilion on May 14, 2016, according to the city's code, Chapter 20-11, fees and charges. The city council sets fees and has the right to waive park and recreational fees by a majority vote.
Tab 14. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council and City Manager. We requested to see if we can use the Harrisfield Pavilion to do an activity on May 14 between 4 to 11 at night. And we would like to request a fee waiver for that location.
Sir, could we have your name and address for the record, please?
Your name and address.
Okay, my name is Alpha Fairmont, and I'm part of 3 Vertus organization. My address is 796 Northwest 11th Street, Homestead, Florida 33030.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah. Is this in conjunction with tab 8? Is it together? Is it the same organization? Tab 8 is the
Yes, sir.
the Haitian Flag Day sponsorship.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So this is really, is it possible that, is it simultaneously the same day and?
Well, they're really 2 items in the same item, because in essence, the first item is he's asking for a waiver of fees. The second one, he's asking for a contribution for the same event. So we kind of separated them because they're 2
Same
separate
thing to me,
requests.
asking. Okay, so,
And their contribution request is for $7,050.
right. And then last year was like 2,900 or something of that sort? That, the contributions?
Last year, we contributed $2,000.
$2,000. Okay, so I guess procedurally question will be, can we take both of them and talk about both of them? Then, because
Sure.
one could affect the other, and if we say no with the fever wage, then we still have to deal with what they're asking for as
Yes.
sponsorship. Mayor?
I mean, that's fine. I mean, we can obviously talk about them together because they are connected, and then
Yes.
we can talk about whether or not we're going to waive the fees and may not still support the $7,000 contribution. So,
Correct.
so we'll talk about 8 and 2 together. Ms. Williams,
Okay,
you have-
all right. Okay, thank you. Yes, so what my question is, how many persons did you all, how was the turnout last year that stimulated such requests this year for $7,050?
Last year, the turnout from last year was more than what we expected, but the only thing is the location and the time wasn't right for most of the people. And we have quite a few senior citizens that stopped by, and the fact that we do it during the day and also it was in an open park, it wasn't comfortable for most of our senior citizens and some other folks. So that's why we want to change the location. And also we do more advertisement this year to have more people.
Okay. So all of what you are requesting far as 7,050, what is your outcome of, what do you intend to, what is your projected outcome of the event?
The event is to mobilize the community, not just an event to have fun, but also mobilize the community that they know they're part of the community as citizens. And also throughout the event, they can understand that City of Homestead, as we have the grand opening on the City Hall, we are Homestead. We want to make sure everybody feel that we are Homestead by doing activity. And from there, not only the youth, the young adult, the senior citizen, and all those will be feel that they're part of City of Homestead. And that's what we think we try to build. And that's what the whole activity is all about, is to bring the community together.
How much is Three Virtues actually contributing to this event? So you're asking us for 7,500, but how much is your organization actually contributing to the cost of this event?
As Three Virtues doesn't really have a budget per se, and all our is a non-profit 501c3, and all our donation come from donors. So we're looking for donation for that activity, because this kind of activity is not in our budget. We don't have a budget for it, but we want to bring the community together. Yes, sir.
So are you saying that you all are not contributing dollar amount of value to this particular for this particular event?
Of course, we are contributing. Volunteer service, we have a lot of people volunteer. We have a lot of, have people that are going to bring the talent to share with the community. Almost everybody that involved in this activity is mostly free.
Okay, so, but how much is your organization contributing? How much you're asking us for?
If I can think on top of my head, maybe 3,500 from everything we're going to do.
And that's without the 7,050, right?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. I'll reserve some of my other questions to perhaps I hear from some of my other colleagues. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Williams. Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. About 2 years ago, I worked in an elementary school, 95% Haitian community, and I understand that Haitian Flag Day is a huge event. It's a staple event, marquee event in the Haitian community. And considering we have a sizable Haitian population in the city of Homestead, I think this is a great opportunity to highlight the Haitian culture within the city of Homestead. The 7,000 may be a bit much, it may be a stretch. And I think what helped you last year was the fact that you hosted the event in Lostra Park, which is in the CRA district. And if my memory serves me correct, we utilized CRA funds to sponsor this event. Such is not the case this year because Harris Field is not within the CRA district. So I don't know how far we'll get to the amount that you are requesting. Each council person may consider contributing to the event. Not sure how much we'll get there. I will contribute to the event. I was there last year. I saw the work and the sweat equity that you put into making that event success. I do agree that more marketing will make it more impactful and draw a larger crowd this year. And the fact that there are restroom facilities at Harris Field, I don't believe we had restroom facilities at Lostra Park last year when you hosted your event. Right, and with so many senior citizens there, you need restroom facilities. So I support this event. I work very closely with Three Virtues organizations for the past couple of years. I will be there and I'm willing to support this initiative.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. First, as it relates to, I guess, since there's two items here, waiver of the fees. This is an event that's free and open to the public?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it was last year and it is this year. Okay,
Yes.
so then I have no problem supporting the waiver of the fees for the use of the facility because that's kind of on my internal, as long as it's something that's good for the community, which I think this is. As far as the donation goes, the amount is a little high. I think that, we as a council should probably focus more on assisting the Haitian community. We do have a good Haitian population here in the city of Homestead, and I think that it is something that we should plan for in the future as far as supporting and putting on the event. The only issue I kind of have with it now is like any other issue, and that is the process of it, and that it's coming up to us in a way that's not a budgeted format, and it's quite a large number. and it opens the door for other organizations to then show up and say, well, we have a good event, and we have a good organization as well. So that's kind of where I am on the issue of the donation as we sit here today, but I think from a future planning perspective, this is definitely an event that we should enfold into some of the other events that we do within our community that we focus on to make sure that the Haitian population and the Haitian community is part of our homestead and is part of what we celebrate. And so I think it's something we should plan for, but it's hard for me to support this full 7,000 in this format, in this forum, because of the precedence it would set for other organizations to come in and say, I also want money for my event. And so then it kind of opens up Pandora's box, which we've discussed about multiple times. But I'd be happy to support the event and again, donate toward the event as we have in the past. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shelley. Mr. Manager, where would this money come from? Would it be a contingency issue? 'Cause
Contingency.
it's certainly not we've never talked about this as being part of the budget.
Correct, it would be contingency.
Okay, because I think it's clearly a little bit of it's a big number. It's a really big number at the 11th hour, and I think, I certainly would find every way possible to help you, financially support you. Have a little hard time just taking this big of a bite tonight without seeing what we could all individually do, maybe as council members, and maybe working together to see if we can help put together some resource. But I'm going to have a hard time going full 7,000 tonight. And of course, I'm just one individual person, but I think everybody's fully behind what you're doing and what you want to do. I just think we've got to find another way to cobble these dollars together for you without exposing, as Mr. Shelley said, exposing ourselves for all the other groups that are, there's a lot of needy groups in Homestead and South Florida that we have to be aware of and only have so much resource that we can allocate for them. So, but I know each council person has some ability to dig into their PR. So if you could give us a little bit of time, we'll have a vote on this, but I think individually, I think there's a consensus that we'll support you. And hopefully I don't know if we can get to the 7,000, but we can meet somewhere in the middle to give you some financial support. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. My question to the gentleman, if you don't reach the 7,000, are you able to still carry on with the event and have it obviously maybe not to the magnitude that you're hoping for, but you would still be able to have the event, or do you have a way of securing the funds to make the balance?
We will continue with the event. It might not be the same outcome the way we wanted to expose it. It might not be the same exposure, but we will continue with the event.
Okay.
Because it's a free event.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Williams?
Yes. I'm looking at some of your costs. How many people attended the event last year?
Last year, roughly, with the numbers, it was 350, but there was come and go because of this. The sun was a little hot.
Okay. What is your projected attendance this year?
This year, with the way we're doing the advertisement and more people hear about it from what happened last year, we're looking at maybe 450 or more.
Okay. Are you really going to need 2 DJs?
We're looking into it, but it's all depend the capacity of how much money we have.
Okay. I don't have problems supporting the waivering of the area. But Mayor, all due respect, I think I know personally I'm tapped out of my PR.
Right. And again, that's going to be the personal issue that each one of us has
It's like
to deal
every
with.
month we have an organization and we try to facilitate the need, but at some point in time, it's whoever comes to the table first. So I don't know if I can support this. I would ask that you would go back and see what you can trim down within your budget, what is actually needed to continue a successful event, and then those things which you can go without for this year, and then perhaps but I think a bite out of 7,050 will be, and especially it's a jump from last year, 2,000. You know, how much did your organization contribute last year to the event?
Last year we
Besides
contributed,
sweat equity.
last year we contributed 1,500, but the jump made because of what, after we done with the activity last year, the community said this is what they want. That's why we even changed the location, not because we don't want Los Park. We do want Los Park, and we know with Los Park we have the ability to get CRA money. But the whole community said they wanted to have a closing place and also do it in the evening, like that they can enjoy it and bring more kids more. Because the community wanted to have a family out for that event. So that's why we changed the whole thing. And because of that concept, because of the feedback of the community, we see the needs that we need for this year, and everything changed.
Okay. So my question is, if you're gonna have two DJs, what, you still need a sound system? And wouldn't the DJs provide a sound system?
One of them is, we have the sound system plus the DJs will be there because with the sound system, we have the engineering of the sound system. We need that also. And because if not, you can have the people there and nobody hear the music. So that's why we wanted to make sure that we have enough capacity. Because music, that's what make a party. Without the music, there's no party. That's why we want to make sure that we satisfy the people.
Right. Okay, I tried to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. On tab 2, is there a motion to waive the fees?
Move it.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. No, we're going to try. It's not working. She's not set up yet. She got to hit the start button. Okay, motion carried, so. Oh, we got a present and then, yeah. Okay. So with the waiver of fees, the waiver of fees passed. Now, as pertains to tab 8, which is the donation of the $7,050, is there a motion for approval? Is there a motion to deny? Is it a discussion item, or you need discussion? Do you need any direction? You need direction from us?
There's a couple of things we can do. Because of the amount, you can just give me informal direction, and I can, if you said you wanted 4,000 or 3,000, we can just go ahead and do that administratively. If you wanted something to come back where he submits a reduced proposal, we could bring it to the next council meeting. Or if you have a definite idea of what you want to do, then you can make a motion to put it on the consent agenda for the next meeting.
Some council members have said they would try to offer up some of their own resources. Some can't. We understand that. It's not a question of good or bad. It's just some of us may have more monies that we could contribute towards this cause. Some of us may have less because we have other causes that are, like I said, there's a lot of need out there. So I would think that we would first want to see what we can put together, and possibly even take some of these costs and see if we can help them in the community to find a cheaper way to get maybe an insurance policy, or maybe, help them with some other support from the outside that might help them soften that process of some of the needs that they have. And that way, again, we're still setting the precedent. If we sit here tonight and say 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, it's still a precedent that I think has been articulated that we're really not wanting to do right now. So I think we need to just give the council members a chance to see what they can do. Let's not commit to this.
You want to withdraw the item at this point?
Well, I don't think there's any support to move it forward.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point, let us work with you, work with the council members that can help you, and let's see what we can put together. Maybe we can also talk about help from the outside community, that maybe where you think it could cost $600 for an insurance policy, maybe we can get that underwritten by some help in the community, some other outside entity, to bring that cost down, as I think what Mr. Williams was saying. Let's see if we can bring some of those costs down. You look at what you absolutely have to have and what you maybe can do without, live without, and let's see if we can find out and get this number down and make it work for you.
All right.
Okay?
I want to thank Mayor and Council and City Manager for all your effort.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay, if there's no objection, tab 13, Robert is here, has got a business to run, and he's asked to be moved up. And I think, Mr. Shelley, that's under your... So if there's no objection, can we move to tab 13? Mr. Shelley, you want to...
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is an item in which I've spoken with the Redland Tropical Trail, and actually I was contacted by members of the downtown Homestead area probably a year or so ago in contemplation that wouldn't it be a great idea to collaborate with the Redland Tropical Trail to add the city of Homestead, specifically the historic downtown district, to that Redland Tropical Trail. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's the guidepost that they have, the little that kind of tells the directions to each of the individual organizations that are part of it. Every year they have more than 1 million visitors in total that visit all of the establishments that are part of this guidepost. And so in the spirit of the city of Homestead trying to capitalize on tourism dollars and become a tourist destination, through the National Park Service and through our improvements we're making to our downtown, it seemed like a natural fit for us to team up with the Redland Tropical Trail to become a member. And so as a result, I've had some meetings with the Redland Tropical Trail to work on how that might look. And they've actually, we've drafted language, we've worked with them. They've adopted amendments to their bylaws, both the Redland Tropical Trail and TIVA, to establish a city membership. So it's different than the other members would be treated. So that provides us with the flexibility we need as a governmental body to not be subject to some of the other restrictions or the exposure to some of the other things that maybe a regular membership would have. But it also allows us to work with them and only helping promote their organization in the Redland Tropical Trail, but also them promoting our organization, which includes establishment in the brochures that we have, or that the Redland Tropical Trail distributes. We would be part of those landmarks. We'd be listed. We'd be a line item, and there's hundreds of thousands of those brochures that are distributed every single year to capitalize on that membership. And so the proposal is that the Tourism Advisory Committee would put up the $5,000 that's necessary as the initial membership fee that we would pay, and then every year thereafter is the $1,500 annually. And this would allow us to tap into these 1 million visitors that are presently maybe not making it through our downtown, but now would be redirected when they go to Robert is Here. They would see the totem pole and it would send them back to downtown Homestead and Snepley Winery and all the other members of the Redland Tropical Trail, and vice versa when they come to ride the trolley to the national parks or go to the Seminole Theater. It would also direct them out to the businesses as well and really kind of create this tourism-driven South Dade area. And so that's what I wanted to propose for discussion to see whether you guys were amenable to moving forward with that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I respect Councilman Shelley. This, I think, as part of the Tourism Advisory Committee, this is within you all's budget, and I don't foresee a problem with it because you're providing that leadership to know exactly what you want to do, or the board wants to do. So, for me, it's a no-brainer because the moment we start trying to figure out each committee and what is good, then we do kind of diminish our responsibility of what we've been given direction over. So I have a problem with this at all.
Thank you, sir. Hold on, Mr. Shelley. Mr. Shelley?
I think the issue here with staff was that it was more or less that the city is going to become a member of an organization. So it wasn't so much the expenditure of the funds by the Tourism Advisory Committee. It was making sure that that you guys, as my colleagues, are willing to be members to join this membership with the Redland Tropical Trail, and that we're all thinking down the same line. So I think that was really more the key than approval of the expenditure.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. So this money is going to come out of the, I believe, $15,000 budget that was given there this year. And the following years, $1,500 will just be removed from that budget, or are you asking to put this in as a line item down the road, or what are you anticipating?
Yeah, the intention would be that the $1,500 annual renewal membership would then be added to the general fund budget as we move forward. It would be just part of our general membership.
And the use of this $5,000 allows you to do the matching funds at GMCVB, still gives you enough money to carry on with that great program, I think.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, and the Tourism Advisory Committee has kind of signed on. I spoke with, and Chairman Craig's here as well from the Tourism Advisory Committee. He supports this initiative, but it does allow us to continue with the matching funds with GMCVB, which is, I can discuss a little bit more in the next topic that I have on here. But yes, it will not affect what we're currently able to do and accomplish.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. just happened to see that when the Chamber of Commerce here as well, do we have something similar in regards to the Chamber of Commerce and when we're kind of paying into the organization and they're helping us as well? Is this something along the same lines is what we're asking?
Yeah, I mean, so I think we are, and this is outside of my expertise here, but I think what you're asking is are we not members of the Chamber of Commerce, which the answer, I believe, is yes. And as a result, yes, we do pay an annual membership fee or dues to the Chamber of Commerce. And so this would be a similar circumstance.
And I know that we'll have a discussion in regards of the other item, which is the Greater Miami Beach Convention Center. Do other municipalities partake in it in the same manner in which we're going to partake in it, or any other municipalities, I guess, working with the organization in the same manner?
With the Redland Tropical Trail? No, we will be the first, and that's one of the benefits to us, is that being the first and entity on board with them, we kind of help shape the program, and I hope we'll be able to shape the way this works, and it's a win-win. We're not opposed, and I don't think they're opposed to bringing on additional city members, should they choose to do so. But because we've kind of entered the foray and kind of declared ourselves as the tourist destination in South Dade, and we're working on creating that image, this would be great to be that first one in the water, so to speak.
Okay. I'll come back with some other questions in a minute.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a great concept as long as you've got the money in your committee, and I think the 1,500 should roll into the general fund as a reoccurring expense. So, I mean, at this point, is there anyone opposed on the council? Anyone opposed to letting this go forward and us joining with this one-time $5,000, and then with the realization that the 1,500. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Didn't give you time to vote. Mr. Maldonado, did you have a question? Yes, sir.
I just had one more question, and I'm for this. I've been up to Miami, and I know that we're talking about tourism, and this has always been a discussion of ours, so I'm all for it. The question is, who's going to be maybe a driving factor, deciding factor? Is it the tourism committee is always going to be a part of? It's going to be working with this organization? Is it just this year, and then next year when the city starts to, start paying the 1,500, who takes position as
Well, and that was one of the discussions we had as part of figuring out how these bylaws would all work, and the question was, if we have a normal seat on the board, which is how it could have, in the original discussions, then if we have a normal seat, if we're able to vote on issues, if we're a formal member in that respect, who would sit on that board? Would it be city staff? Would it be a council person? Would it be the mayor? And that constantly changes, and so the discussion was, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, on specific bylaws, we took that out so that we're no longer a voting member. We don't actually sit on the board, but we get the benefits of it, and we're both free to kind of separate those ties whenever we see fit if we start going different directions in our philosophies. But there won't be an actual sitting voting member, which eliminates that problem of who's supposed to sit, who gives direction, and that way we're all communicating together.
Thank you.
Okay. You have all your directions, you're clear on that, okay. Tab 13, so Robert, you can leave now. Come up to the podium, Robert, please.
This is actually Schnebley's baby as well as mine, and Steve from the Monkey Jungle. I do want to say welcome to our little family of historical tropical places in South Florida. And it was a pretty good idea. It was brought to us by Mr. Shelley, and I appreciate all the efforts the last year and a half that we've been meeting with him. And it was real eye-opening, the T's and the dots that you put over your eyes, that everything has to be just right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Robert, appreciate it. Lost my place. Okay, we're back to tab 3, Mr. Manager.
Mayor, Pete Wallman is here, who will start us off.
Hold on. Oh, you got it. Raise your hand. I don't know who. I didn't know who to turn on. So No, you turned it off. Now you got it. Pull it down so you can, there you go.
Mayor, Council, this item is for the purchase of the property located 97 Southwest First Street for the municipal garage project. There is an option, 90-day option contract, which gives the seller a 60-day due diligence period followed by an additional 30 days to close. The negotiated purchase price is $110,000. The appraisal was for $95,000, but if we had taken this property to eminent domain, it would have cost approximately $25,000 to $35,000 in cost. So there's a net savings of between $10,000 and $15,000 by the fact that we're able to purchase this property through a negotiated conveyance rather than having to use eminent domain to acquire the property.
And Mr. Manager, this is part of the whole Phase 2?
Yes.
Parking garage, whole system, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
I see, where's the funding coming from, and then how much is left in this amount of a budget or account?
Hold on. Carlos?
Okay. This one's coming out of the PTP funds, and in this account, this is for land. So right now, the only thing we transferred in there is $110,000. As far as the PTP funds, there are still significant funds there, and some are earmarked for other purchases.
And Councilman, if I can add, what we have approval for from the CITT board is for a much larger amount, which would then require us to go for a revenue bond and would be backed by those those PTP revenues. We have a pretty good sense of what we're already allowed to do in terms of where the garage can be and where we can use PTP monies to acquire properties. And so we're assembling these properties relying on those approvals. The issue of the retail project, we're still working on the financing issues. So ultimately, the site plan may change a little bit, but all those properties will need one way or the other.
Mayor?
Yes, sir, you have.
How much more property do we have to acquire? How
There
many more of these?
There's another three parcels that we're still negotiating, correct, Rick? Because that's I hate to, we know them as the names, so if you can talk about the properties without using the names.
There are a total of 9 parcels that need to be acquired for the garage project. 2 of them we approved at the last meeting. This is one. There's another one that's going to be coming up right after this for either a conveyance or eminent domain. And then there is parcels 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more after this.
And that would give us the total properties in which we would need to complete this process. Is that right? Is that what I'm understanding?
The total will be 9.
Well, total, unless there's a change in the site plan, which we'd come back to you and for example.
What I'm saying is, today.
As it currently exists, correct.
That this would be all of the property that we would need in order to do this. And then your other 5 or 6 properties, have you all started talks with them, or are you all still going back and forth?
We're in negotiations. Most of them are looking pretty well. They're going pretty well. There is some discussion about on 1 or 2 where there's a little bit of, let's say, resistance, and we're trying to work through those before using the
eminent domain,
the E word.
Yeah. And I know you really probably cannot say, but or should not say because of negotiation. But what will be? What do we think the total will be after all this acquiring of property? What will probably be estimated value of all of this property that we are purchasing to do this site, to do this project? I mean, what is?
You want to give a range without getting us into trouble?
We did $2.9 million for the 2 properties on Chrome.
No, just totality. Give me a
totality.
You want to use the six range?
It's in the 6 range. In the 6 range.
And all of that is coming from PTP funds?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion to move tab 3? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 4, Mr. Manager.
Mayor, Council, this property is located 87 Southwest First Street. It's a lot of 9,500 square feet with a living area of approximately 1,900 square feet. The resolution is so that we can begin the eminent domain process. Before you can do anything else in terms of being able to use eminent domain to acquire property, you need to have an authorizing resolution. So that's what we're seeking tonight in regard to this property.
And if I can add also, we're hoping we reach some sort of an agreement with them, but we wanted to start the process.
In the first step before we could file an eminent domain suit is we need to make a written offer. So if the resolution passes tonight, within the next couple of days, we'll make a written offer to the property owner.
So this doesn't mean that this is an eminent domain property tonight. It means this opens the door for the opportunity for you to eminent domain if you need to, but your plan is to have a mutual agreement as far as selling on price.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from council? Is there a motion? Move it. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 5, Mr. Manager.
Julio?
Hold it. Where's Julio? Julio?
Mayor and Council, staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve additional work performed by Metro Equipment Services for various unforeseen conditions encountered during the construction and installation of the 36-inch interceptor pipe along Southwest 328th Street. The additional work needed to be performed expeditiously to minimize negative impacts to regional and local traffic on US 1 and Lucy Street. All costs associated with unforeseen conditions are eligible and covered under the county GOB grant and result in no additional expenses to the city. The total amount is $213,883.93.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams?
Oh, Mayor, I think that was on the last tab I was trying to get on.
I missed you. Sorry.
And we already voted.
Okay. Any questions from council on tab 5? Mr. Burgess?
Mr. Breyer better be glad the county's paying for this one, otherwise we'd be having a bad discussion right now.
We would not be here if it wasn't that case.
We'd be out there digging a hole.
Is there a motion on tab 5? Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 6. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, it was on that last tab. I guess I'll just pull it for next week then, whenever we have it, because I have some questions about this, but I guess, yeah, it's over now, so I'll pull it for next week.
All right, sir.
Sheesh.
Mayor, which item was that, just so we...
We're on tab...
Item number 5, I needed to talk on, and item number 4, I needed to talk on. So I just pull it for next week.
You want me to go back to them tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, if I can, I guess I'd like a full presentation on this, even though we're not paying for it, but I have some kind of concept or idea exactly, since it's affecting, whatever way it is, good way. Still, I think there's, some of the stuff I think we need to just have, so that we're all on the same page and we all know beyond just these pages. And how do we come to this conclusion or solution for this area?
Mr. Bray, yes, sir, go ahead. Julio.
Through Mayor and Council, I can basically go through this just to explain the conditions that we ran into. This project is a $1.7 million project that was to put a 36-inch gravity interceptor along 328th Street. As you know, the infrastructure along those roadways were put many years ago. We had an event, Hurricane Andrew, which we lost a lot of the existing as-built drawings in the area. So there's a lot of pipelines, existing utilities that have been underground for 40 years and nobody really knows where they're at. And it's hard to predict what you're going to run into when you put in a pipe this size. Think about it. This pipe is 3 feet in diameter. The trench that needs to be built for it is about 6 feet wide along a 2-lane highway, and also included the crossing of a DOT roadway, US 1. Along the US 1 corridor as well, there were many additional utilities that we ran into, including cast iron pipes, which, if not supported properly, once exposed, they could crack and basically collapse under construction. This work had to be done expeditiously because, again, we were impacting US 1 along Southwest 328th Street, which is one of the major east-west corridors of the city. And as you're probably aware, during the construction of this project, the idea was to keep the pipeline out of the roadway for most of the way so that we could leave traffic traveling across that portion of the construction project. But due to the existing pipes that were exposed, and these are pipes that are important to the city, we had to realign the pipeline further into the roadway, which created traffic conditions whereby our police department had to be present 24/7 during those. Half of the cost that we're asking for here is actually for police presence. It's not going to a contractor, it's going to actually the police department in the city to just make sure that the area was safe during the construction and also at night when there was no construction activity going on.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm trying to get at. And then also, how long will this interrupt any businesses during this time? What is
Well, the project is
time
complete, so this area is complete already. Now we're getting ready. Actually, the reason we had to go so fast for the installation of this pipeline is because now comes the widening of 328th Street, which, by the way, we have some good news from the county. They already put it out for bid. They got the bids back. They're reviewing bids now, and they expect to start construction by the end of the summer. As a matter of fact, they requested to use this room to have a public meeting with all the people that are in the area to be able to attend to see how their traffic is going to be impacted during the construction of that project. So that's coming up.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So we're moving to tab 6. Thank you, Julio. Moving to tab 6.
Barbara?
Oh. Okay, Barbara, there you go. You're on there.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Staff recommends the mayor and council approve a resolution to purchase 12 S&C Electric Company and Teliruptor automated feeder switches in the amount of $428,071.89, and this is an approved CIP. The electric utility has been installing automated switches on the city's main electrical circuits annually since 2010. The main circuits are also known as feeder circuits. And these switches, in the event of a power outage, they provide for rapid electrical service restoration. It's actually under 1 minute to half of the customers that are normally affected by that feeder circuit outage. And a feeder is typically about 1,000 meters. So these switches provide for half of the customers to just see a very brief outage. The installed switches use a pulse closing team intelligence technology, which is proprietary to S&C, the manufacturer. And the plan is to continue installing the same switches on the electric infrastructure so that we can maximize the benefit of the technology. In September 2015, the electric utility was awarded a Resilient Electricity Delivery Infrastructure Grant, which is known as REDI, by the Department of Energy. And the grant covers 50% of the cost for the switches. And these switches are also specifically cited in the grant, in our proposal.
All right. Questions from council, Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor. Through the manager to staff, I want to say thank you, because one of the questions I had for them was, well, one, it started back in 2009, so I wanted to see what the pricing, make sure the pricing was good. And the other thing is I brought up single source provider that they had before, is I wanted to see competitive pricing or some sort of price that stated what we were, something to show that what we're paying is a legitimate price, not just something that was given to us by a sole source provider, so some sort of comparison. So they did give that to me in an email today, so I wanted to thank them for that, and their prices were in line from what was quoted to where we are today is still very much in line with where they're at. So I just wanted to say thank you for that and let you guys know that I had asked them for that and that they did provide it. So the sole source provider is a good thing here. The only thing that I did talk to the department head about was, make sure perhaps in the future we can have, or any department head, when we do sole source stuff, just make sure that there's some sort of comparison in there to make sure that we're getting the information that we need to make sure that, when you go on Amazon or whatever, you're looking and there's 4 or 5 different people to give you the price, just so that we understand that the price we're getting is a legitimate price. And that was my only question to them. So, and they did provide it to me, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. And as is listed in here, so 214,000 comes out of your money, and then 214,000 come out of the grant. So it's a total expenditure of 428, but actually the capital project's going to cost the utility 214. So
Correct,
good
yes.
deal. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion? Tab 6? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 7.
Mayor, this is one of several items that are on the agenda tonight. They're directly related to us now being in the new building and trying to sort things out. So this first one here is a kind of a proposal to work a little bit on the room itself and where people can stand. So for example, here, people stand up the aisle, they block some of the views, or down the other corridor. So what we've suggested for you to consider is a policy whereby the aisles are left unobstructed. The well area, which we call here the well area, would be unobstructed as well. Also on the dais, that the dais would be only for the people, the members that are on the dais. Also, this proposal includes a sergeant of arms. Most elected bodies that I'm familiar with is usually some sort of a sergeant at arms, just to ensure that there's any issues that they can be addressed in a peaceful way. And then also this addresses the use of placards in the room would be prohibited. And that's generally what we have here.
Well, and I've had some conversations with the attorney, from the point of view, this is definitely a different feel from any council chambers we've ever had. We've never had a podium, 6 feet in front of the elected body. We've never had it in the center of the room. So it's really kind of a totally different feel. And the other thing for me is, as a chair, and obviously anyone that chairs a meeting, there's a lot of more requirements of the chair in this particular building that wasn't in some of the other buildings. So it's kind of hard to keep an eye on the entire room the way that it's structured. And the sergeant at arms would be a roving person in kind of my mind, and I think the attorney's and the manager's mind, was to be able to, if there's a problem brewing or something that's outside of the scope of what the chair can see or is able to, it'll help us control the inside of the building and give us another set of eyes and another set of ears out in the crowd to make sure that everything's going appropriately, and that we give a fair opportunity for us to do what we're supposed to do, which is city business. And I mean, obviously the public comment is part of city business, but it's also, we're spending 2 hours plus in this public comment section, and it's interfering to some degree with our ability to do business. And I know we probably all got the same email, but one of the people that's been in the community for years had talked about possibly moving it from the beginning of the meeting towards the back. I don't know what it's the resolution puts it in the front. So that's clearly where it was designed to be put. One of the email that I got, and I think everybody was CC'd on it, made, an analysis that, they're paying attorneys and lobbyists and groups to stay here, and there's a considerable amount of lag time between when we can get to the legislative part of the meeting, which is where we have to actually conduct business. So I think we need I would ask for the support on this resolution, is just to give us the ability to design areas where we don't have congregations of people, which has never been the problem for us, or never been an issue for us before, in the way this building is laid out. And it doesn't really matter where we do the public hearing part of it. It was just something that was brought up earlier today in an email. So, Mr. Williams?
Mayor, prior to, I think, maybe after a year after we changed the format, back in 2000 and I want to say 9 or 10, that public comment was at the back.
Yes, it was.
But at the time, the presiding officer, we voted to move it to the front, or the beginning of the agenda. I think you are asking that we support this as is with no could changes be made or added that will enhance perhaps in this procedure that you're asking for?
The
Or you
comment,
just no?
my comment was, the attorneys and the manager and I looked at the layout of the room. We looked at, I asked for some additional help to help control, this room, because it's so different from what I've been used to and what we've been used to. We didn't contemplate moving the agenda to the public comments in the rear. What we only talked about was what's in front of us. I was just bringing to, your forefront, if you want to call it that, one of the developing community had said that they have been sitting here for 2 hours plus with waiting to get to the legislative part of the meeting, and they had made a request to maybe look at it. So it's totally at the discretion of this board, because right now the resolution that we're looking at possibly amending leaves it where it is, which is in the front of the meeting. If we're going to amend the resolution and there's a will of this council to move it to the back, now would be the time to talk about it. That was just my only.
Okay,
his own
that's what I was
position.
trying to understand. I didn't have a problem with it was at the end, the beginning. But I'm certainly in favor of rearranging that so that we can conduct the business in which, those legislative items to take up, and then to deal with whatever persons would have to say during public comment. And also that, have you considered comment cards so that that will help provide you with providing the maintaining of the meeting? Have you had any thoughts on public comment cards, or to acknowledge those, or how would that work? Or
We did talk briefly, and at this particular point, the manager and the attorney and I had basically said, if we can get some ability to not have people congregating at the podium, some ability to have them, if we're going to congregate, in the FICO Williams, in the community center, they could line up along the wall and wouldn't interfere with the people that are seated. This way, there's really no place for them to line up, so they're lining up right down the middle. So we wanted to stage the speakers in the back. We could institute a policy.
well, if you do a public comment, you would just call them forward, and then that way they wouldn't have to be congregating in the whatever the back. I'm just asking. I'm not saying.
No, I understand. It's a very good question, and let me, we've got an issue. I think we've got to get a better grip on this building and the way this is laid out. And right now this is what we proposed. We can add things to it as we speak here tonight. So you're suggesting maybe looking at a comment card?
Yes, and then I see that. Yes, sir. I think that would be. I've seen the county do it. I've seen other municipalities do it. I've seen the state legislation do it, and it just provides a a consistent flow with what the issue is at hand and what we are to be conducting to allow those, publics to have input on that item that we're discussing at that time. I don't have a problem with being land blasted up here, but I think there ought to be some order and respect to at least to that structure of that. So that would be my recommendation, Mayor and Council, that number one, we move the public comment back to the end. We can get those items out of the way that those persons come put in that time and dollars to pay those professionals to be here. Get that out the way, and then we can go into the public comment after the business.
Mr. Mayor, I would maybe suggest that you put it between number 7 and number 8 on page 8 of your handout, which would be after resolutions, but before the manager, the city attorney, and the council member reports, in case the council or anybody wants to respond to some of those things.
Definitely, that would be my recommendation as well.
That's fine.
Right after our last legislative matter and our last resolution, and then right before the city manager and the attorney and the council, mayor.
Yeah, so if we could take these one at a time, I think there's a motion by Councilman Williams to move.
Wait, there's others.
No, I was going to do one at a time.
Okay, so you want, as far as the request for a comment card.
Well, okay, so there's let's just do both, those two.
So
Request
comment card.
to have a comment card added to this.
But wait, if someone's okay with moving the agenda around, may not be okay with a comment card.
Okay,
So
so do
let's
them
just do them one at a
individually.
time. That
Perfect.
way we'll get clarity on everything. So as far as the comment card, is there anyone, is there a motion to add the comment card into this is going to be a resolution. It's going to be, that's how we're going to do it, because it's going to be by resolution. We could also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Attorney, but as the chair could ask for a comment card without putting it into the resolution, correct?
Yes.
So
I think if you're, I don't think I'm on. I think if you're going to do it and you're amending the resolution, you should just put it in the resolution, and that way it'll be here and people can read it in advance, and it'll be done formally as opposed to being done informally, if that's what the council wants to do.
Okay, is there a motion to move to add the comment card into the resolution? Okay, we're not ready yet. They're not ready. They got questions. Mr. Williams, I got your 2 issues down. Anything else, sir?
No, just the other items, my really main item is to move the public comment to the appropriate, to that place. That's it.
Okay.
I can't give nobody else a store view online.
Said that I need comment cards. I'm just, so I don't know. I have no idea if the question has come up.
All right, sir. Mr. Burgess?
Thank you, Mayor.
Oops.
Thank you, Mayor. As somebody who stood here and waited many hours in the past, I think it is a bad move to move the public comment to the end of the night. And Mr. Mayor, you know, I stood there for hours and hours, and I'd be the 1 or 2 people left. People would get up and leave throughout the meeting because it just drug on too long for them to be able to give their public comment. So I think that we need to leave it at the beginning. Unfortunately, it's part of our process. People need to understand that. That's the way it is. I think one thing that I took from the email that I got, that I think, or an email that I got, I'm not sure if everybody was CC'd or not because it was tough to tell, but I think we should take our request should go under our time at the end of the meeting. We shouldn't be having hour discussions on whatever the topic might be, or an hour and a half topic brought up where we sit there and discuss that before we start business either. I think our discussions, if we have a topic that we want to talk about, whatever it may be, tonight I know there's a discussion being brought up by Councilman Roth, but for instance, if we were on a full agenda, that would be under his business, not a discussion at the beginning of the night that would carry on for an hour at the beginning of a meeting. And I took that out of the email that I got, that people are tired of sitting there listening to us go back and forth on things that have no relevance to them, or to most of the people that are sitting there on a lot of different occasions. And I know that we pay our attorneys to sit there too, so we're not the only ones paying. If we come down, Pete, fortunately, I saw Pete run out the door tonight. It's the first night he's ever left here before 11 o'clock at night. He's usually the last item on the agenda for whatever reason. But that's what I took out of it. And I think that if we have topics that we want to bring up, that while we're talking about agendas and saving time and all that, I think they should go under our business at the end of the evening. And that any information, if you're going to bring a topic up for discussion, I think information should be given to the clerk in a timely manner so that everybody can educate themselves on it too. So that's something that I think we needed to say. But as far as moving it to the end of I can't support that. As somebody that stood there for 3-4 years, waiting to talk on different topics back in the day before I got the ability to sit up here, there was nothing that frustrated me more than looking down and seeing it being 11 o'clock, knowing that I didn't know when I was going to get to speak. But people can come here now, and they know they're going to get to speak around 6:15 if we start the meeting on time. So I can't support moving it to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is the second meeting when I completely agree with Councilman Burgess. I think there's an argument to be had on both sides as it relates to public comment being at the beginning or at the end. With the public comments being at the beginning, it gives our residents the opportunity to speak, get back home to their families, as opposed to staying here 10, 11 o'clock at night when they may have kids and families and dinner to tend to.
Or if kids are here to speak.
Right, so I can't support it being moved towards the end. If there is a happy medium, I definitely support that. I like our items moving towards the end under our business. I definitely like that, but I just can't support public comment moving at the end. And I have other comments, but I'll wait until we tackle each item.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree as well. That was my first concern, was just the public comments, and we've been here and we've had issues that gone, we have to get extensions, and so I just don't see any resident or anyone who wants to speak in public comments. I just don't see them, standing here to the end of the night and to say their piece, and so I think we need to give them the opportunity. So I couldn't support that being at the end. I would like to see it stay in the beginning. I think if we have our policies and procedures in place and we have order here, then we should be able to get through those comments, with in good time. And then afterwards, we'll conduct business. But I think that we always need to remember that we serve the people. In regards to also what was mentioned in the discussion items, I also agree that I'd like to see that come under, just if it's someone's item that they want to discuss under their discussion items at the end, I'd be for that too, because I've kind of sat through some of those discussions thinking, why are we not having this at the end, not right in the middle? We're dragging this along, because those are things that you start a discussion and we don't know how long it's going to go. So I stand agreeing with Councilman Burgess in regards to that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Burgess as far as the public comment. I think that if we initiate some of these policies and if we follow those policies that we're prepared to possibly implement tonight, I think that'll resolve some of the length that we're having right now under the public comment section. So I think that we try that first before we go to some additional measures to consider moving the public comment one way or another. So, I think we leave it at the front. The comment cards, though, I did have a clarification question on that, and that is who would, I guess there would be a standard form. That standard form would then go to the clerk, or does it go to the mayor as far as the order in which they're received? I assume we'll come up with some sort of process to do that. Does that need to be put in the resolution, Richard, or is that something we can just put, we're going to use comment cards and we develop that procedure going forward internally?
You don't need to put that in the resolution, right. Whatever procedure the mayor wants. Some mayors like to deal with those cards themselves. Others feel like it's a distraction. They want the clerk to deal with it. You also have the sergeant at arms who could deal with it as well.
Okay, and then I know that a lot of times what we have here for our speakers, they have to list their name and address. Is that a precondition to the comment cards? Does that have to be included on the comment cards, their name, address, and their intent to speak? Or is it just going to be a card, like a take your number?
Generally, it could be either way, as long as at some point their name and address is on the record. And it's really so that if we have to get in contact with them or...
Right, correct. That way you have the information in case they raise a point, we need to follow up with them and make sure that we get that information. But it would seem like it'd be good to go ahead and include that as part of the precondition for the comment card, and then that way we have all the information we need as they come up.
Well, and clarify this, Mr. Attorney, if you can, because a comment card could pertain to an item on the agenda that has nothing to do with just a public comment. You know, so if somebody wants to speak as to item number 7, which is a land use item, they'll fill out a card as well. So every person that wants to speak on an agenda item would have to fill out or would need to fill out a card in order to be recognized and speak at the podium.
So they'll either...
Just leave it on for me.
So they'll either put it an agenda item or they'll put public comment. So they'll have maybe even a box to check, which is just public comment, or she'll put or a specific agenda item. We could do that right on the form that we develop with the clerk.
Right. Yeah, and I like that. I guess to finish my comments, I like that concept because it does provide some sort of process and procedure. It's not a rush to be first one to the microphone and everyone's standing around if there's a long discussion. And so I think that works very well, and it's I think could be a very good policy to provide some efficiency. And I like the idea too of having any of our discussion items under our business. The only thing I do think that it should be a formally tabbed item, just like anything else is just moved under our business. And I also agree that we should have information attached. If it's going to be any decision-making processes or any request for a decision, there should at least be some information so they're well aware of what that item is. We can get some of our thought processes together and be educated and ready to make those decisions. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Only reason why I raised the issue for public comments, 2 things. One is because it says on page 10 that the mayor will recognize those persons who sign in. So, I mean, if we pass this, we're saying that we got a comment card. Where are they going to sign in at? It's got to be some process, So if we're going to copy or paste or whatever, however we get all of this, so Richard, I guess if page 10, under public comment, item number 4, under F, says that the mayor will recognize those persons who sign in under the agenda item public comments.
Right. We'll incorporate the comment cards into these rules before it comes back to the council.
Right. Well, that's the only reason I raised comment cards is because I saw it in here that says sign in, so I didn't know if that was going to be the way to do it. Number 2 is, Rich, when somebody comes up to speak, is it law that they must give their name and address for the record? I mean, what is the procedure on
It's certainly
saying, no, I don't want to give my address?
Yeah, it's certainly the procedure that's followed by every community. I haven't looked at it in a while to see actually whether we can require somebody to give their name and address. I'd have to look at that.
Yeah. So I think if we're asking, then what substantive material do we have to ask other than to say we want to follow up? But if they are not comfortable in giving their name or their address, how can we ask for that? I mean, we're compelling them to give it, and they do, but I don't know what the intent of why we do what we do.
Well, I can tell you why it's done is because a lot of times they'll say the manager should contact the person or just follow up.
But what is the procedure for us? To implement that.
Right. There's some new state legislation on this which has been recently passed, so I'll look at that as well and let you know.
Okay. All right. And the third item, Mayor, is still with public comment. Is that I don't think when my ability in raising was not to put it at the end. I don't know what we consider the end. I consider the end adjournment, but we would, as far as being placed on the agenda, far as the public comment, we had indicated, or you had, according to this, I guess is what I'm looking at. So the roll call, the public comments, then addition, deletions, and deferrals, consent agenda, and then public hearings, right? Is that what I'm understanding? To continue the same, and then after resolutions, is that what you were proposing, or we were discussing to put it because at the end is after the, I guess after the mayor and council reports.
The only concern with it being in the end is if under the public comment, someone makes an erroneous statement or something that needs to be clarified by a council person or the manager or the attorney, if they have the final say and we adjourn, then there's no ability to clarify what was or was not properly said. So the point would be is if we put it, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
No, I'm just asking. I just
Yeah.
want to clarify what is the end, because, you know,
Towards after the business portion of the meeting is basically what was being discussed. Resolutions is basically the last business function of the meeting, and we go into business, and then we go into reports, and then we go into adjournment. So really, that was again based on what I saw out of the email was if we did it, which I don't think we're going to, but if we did it after resolutions, it would still give the manager the ability and the attorney the ability and the mayor and council the ability to correct the record in some case if something was inappropriate or was not properly stated for the record, for the record. So that was the only, when I say the end, which would be the end of the business portion of the meeting. But again, it could be an irrelevant point at this juncture.
so if we're looking for time frame and to condense the meeting as far as time frame of discussion, whether it's at the beginning or under the business, it's still going to require the same amount of time. Whether it's still relevant or not, you're not going to save time by putting it under my business or at the beginning. I don't know if I'm trying to understand what Councilman Burgess is kind of trying to relate to here. May I get clarity from Mr. Burgess?
I've got Vice Mayor next, and then I got Mr. Burgess. So will you clarify that under your, well, wait, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you. My intention is, I want to bring up a discussion on soccer fields, which I've done. Instead of having that discussion, most of the times we put those items following public comment before we start our line of business. If I want to bring that up, it should be under my business, a tabbed item under my business, and whatever information I can give to back my request, my project that I'm trying to support or give out to people, it would need to be into the clerk, into the manager in a timely fashion so that everybody can read it and have it in front of them if I'm requesting some sort of action or monies or anything like that, instead of at the beginning, because sometimes we get going and we get on tangents of, well, is it really city, should we put the city logo out there? We had a 10-minute discussion when we were giving money to the bike people. It turned into should we put the city logo on their paperwork or not? Well, there's people sitting there that are paying guys, $400 or $500 an hour to be here, and theoretically, in my mind, those items should come at the end of the meeting and not at the beginning when people have other people sitting here. And by the end of the meeting, Mr. Williams, I don't mean after all of our business, but basically after the business is done. And I've sat here back in the day. Now, some of our meetings aren't as busy as they used to be back when we had so many housing developments being built and all that, but I have a feeling that our meetings are going to stay busy for a while. And you still have people that would have to sit here for 3 or 4 hours perhaps on a nightly basis to get to that point in the meeting. And if you've got a young child that wants to come and make a point to city council, I don't know how we make him stay here till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night if he's got to get up and go to school the next day or go home and finish his homework or go home to eat dinner because maybe his parents just picked him up and brought him here so he could make his point to us. And he hadn't even had dinner yet. And I know that happens to a lot of people too that aren't prepared to come here and spend 3 or 4 hours is they don't have dinner. So that's why I would say that we don't move the meetings to the 3/4 mark or whatever mark you would want to, after the official business mark or whatever it would be. But that's it. And I hope did I clarify what you were asking for about discussion items?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. For point of clarification, because I think I'm reading into this public comment card a bit too literally, so I'm going to ask. The function of the public comment card? Is it to capture constituents' name and address for the record and for them to place their comment on the card? Or is it to capture their information and then for them to check off whether or not they would like to speak during public comment or whether or not they would like to speak during a particular agenda item? Because from what I've seen at school board meetings, and this is what I like because systems are in place, if anyone would like to speak during public comment, if public comment starts at 6 o'clock, you have to be here by 5:30, sign up, all of those requests to speak goes to the chair. The chair calls the individuals out based on the order in which they were received, and if they're not here by the time their names are called, then they don't speak. And I think that prevents someone from coming at 6:59, running to the desk, oh, I have a public comment. I like that process better. You get here by a certain time, you sign up, those cards go to the clerk, to the mayor. Once your name is called, if you're not there, you don't speak. It's just simple as that. That I like.
I move it. Second.
All in favor?
These are one of the discussion items, Jimmy, that I'm talking about, how we go on and on and on, and it grows into a snowball bigger than this room is. And we, 3 hours later, we're still here.
Okay, let's go. Anything else, Vice Mayor?
No,
Thank you. Thank you for that. As it pertains to the question of moving the agenda around, is there a motion to move the agenda to public comments in the rear? See, is there a motion to move the public comments? Okay, so no one. Okay, perfect. We're there. So we're going to add a comment card into this resolution.
Specific?
I'm sorry?
You have to be here by a certain time to sign up?
All that what the Vice Mayor said.
I like that.
Okay, all right, so we're going to add that into this resolution, plus the other additions that are in this resolution to give some clarity to where and what people can do. Is there a motion to move tab 7 with the amended comment card?
Move it.
Moved?
No.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Burgess?
Well, I would like to make a motion that we move our comments or our discussion items go under our name as a bullet point or as a tab, excuse me. And if you're asking for action or something, or monies or whatever, then we need to have materials to the clerk in a timely fashion so that the rest of us can read about what you're asking us to do.
Richard?
We have not, at the request of the council, really enforced this, but if you look at page 11, under reports by mayor of council members, it does say, except for informational reports, a signed written memorandum or form provided for such purposes shall state the purpose of the action item, the major points to be covered, the reasons for the necessary action, and the action desired by the council member. That's already in your reports, but...
I'd like to have that go where it goes under the council.
Right, that's where it's supposed to go.
Okay.
But it's, the council has not really been that cooperative in doing that. We just get a call, I want to put this on the agenda. If you want to start enforcing that, it's already in your rules.
All right.
So
It's
that,
enforced. It's already in the rules, so we don't really need to add it, we just need to enforce it.
no, but I think that what's being suggested is that those, if, two things really. The second one's taken care of, which is some sort of a written report. That's already here. The first part of the motion is that under council reports, those items be placed. And so for enforcing this rule, the report would go right under there, under the tab under Councilmember Burgess or Robert. So the first
But
part.
Mayor, just to be clear, we're looking for, if you want us to enforce that, we'd want direction from you. 'Cause I think-
We can do a vote on it.
All right, so it's in here, John, is
Yeah.
it in here the
Yeah.
way you want it? So the question is, are we going to enforce all of this, or are we going to enforce bits and
If
pieces?
not, you should take it out, frankly. If you're not going to enforce that, you want some written, then you should take it out of here because you should follow your own rules, really.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burgess. Let me get Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams?
Yes. I thought, I thought the things I know I put on offer to put on the agenda, I kind of provide this process. Now, it is not, from my understanding, we don't control the agenda as far as council people on where we place items. You know, so if I, for instance, put an item on the agenda, I don't determine where it goes at. I think who sets the agenda is the manager. Who sets the agenda?
Yeah.
The manager or the mayor?
Manager.
I think
So-
go ahead, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so if I place an item and it says discussion item from Councilman Williams, then I'm assuming that whoever sets the agenda puts it appropriately where it needs to be. So, and things that I've asked for, I think has come under my business. I can remember Southwest Master, an item that dealt with the Southwest Plan of Action, that kind of thing. It was under my business with supplemental material that I provided to council. So is it just the location that's set by the manager, am I right, or no?
I think there is some confusion about why we haven't been enforcing what this is. Because from time to time, council members have asked, I want something on the cow. And this is the topic, and sometimes they provide information and sometimes they don't. So our practice has been, anytime somebody asks us for something, we just put it on. So if you said, I want it on the cow, if you have information, you don't have information, we just put whatever has been asked of us. Our interpretation of this particular item as written is that if you said, I want something on the agenda, it would be for the council meeting, it would be during this section of the agenda, which is the reports of mayor and each council member, and also if there's particular material it is required to have the material. So we have not been enforcing that just because we've kind of just gone on to the informal. If you ask for something, we put it on, but we'll do whatever you want.
Okay. My other question or comment is that, because I really want to get this right. So if we're going to go, if we're going to enforce this, my question will be to my colleagues, are we all okay with whatever, all that is written within this? Because there can be some valid issues or concerns that plague our individual communities that we deemed as important. And if we've got to determine 5 affirmative votes, something, I mean, it's, you know, it's, I'm sorry, Mr. Burgess?
With a vote, we could move it out if it's something of that importance.
But
Community, with a vote, you could ask at the beginning for additions, deletions, or deferrals. Could we move it from there up, Richard? If it were something of vital importance to somebody?
That would be up to the mayor, subject to being overruled.
I'm just concerned. I understand the placement of it, but, you know, I'm just looking at some of this. It's just like, it's, you know, some things we can bring up. We just don't have the staff to do the kind of investigation and analysis that we would like to have done to consider for our body. But then if there's some direction, if we're going to go forward with such, then, you know, there's some things I just can't provide to all of my colleagues because I just don't have the staff to do it. You know, so it's an idea, but I'm just trying to maybe hear back from my colleagues. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I just had one question. The sergeant at arms, is that going to cost anything?
It would be a police officer. Chief would be on duty, or you would pull somebody from on duty, or you'd, because the question is it going to cost any extra? No.
No?
Okay.
Okay. That's all.
Anything else, ma'am?
Nope.
Mr. Shelley?
No, I was actually going to raise the same thing that Councilman Williams stated, and that is if we do move our portion of the discussion underneath our portion, based on the current written format, it does now take 5 affirmative votes. So in the event that we're bringing forth an item that, you know, we can't carry 5 votes on, which hopefully we can, but sometimes you can't, it's a divided council, now we're setting a higher bar for any council-initiated discussion items or council-initiated policy is now taking 5 votes instead of just 4 votes to move forward. And so I think that is probably not the intent of the discussion we're having tonight. And I know it was made before, I believe historically, because at the time they were kind of throwing items on at the last minute and trying to force decisions to be made when people weren't educated, weren't ready for it, and so to make it harder to pass things at the very end, kind of in a secretive fashion, they made the requirement of 5 votes. But for our purposes of discussion tonight, my intention would not be to increase and make it harder for us to pass our own initiatives or to get our own initiatives to move forward to the next stage of the process. So I think that would need to be modified or addressed. Yeah, just
Simple
to
majority.
regular majority votes, yeah. Now, you can still, You know, if the other issue is still something to be concerned, maybe there's a difference between one or the other. But I think as long as it's there, as long as the information is provided ahead of time, and you actually do follow all the rules in there, then I think just having 4 votes, the majority votes, is no different than any other item.
So you're just saying everything else is fine by you, just instead of having 5 affirmative votes, just have a simple majority?
Yeah, simple majority, just like any other decision.
All right, sir. Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Yes. When is the closing, when is the deadline for closing the agenda?
8:30?
Well, for staff, it's one thing, and for council members, as long as we have the information, we can have it, the agenda goes out on Friday, so typically, it's Friday morning or Thursday night. Friday morning would be helpful to us, because if we get it at 4 o'clock, we may have already processed the agenda, or we're right in the middle of it, so some cutoff. Thursday would be ideal for us. If it has to be Friday morning, then
I just wanted to make sure, because when we pass this, you know, I'm just saying, we have implications on this stuff. And then when it comes up and we say we can, you know, I just want to make sure that all of this stuff is covered, because my only concern is that I mean, this is a large bite, Mayor, to just doing a 30-minute conversation here.
just to clarify, are you all okay with Thursday afternoon being the cutoff for agenda items, or you want Friday morning? Friday morning? Okay.
And as a point of kind of a clarification, if there's an addition, a deletion, or deferral in the beginning of the meeting, all it would take would be 4 votes to add that item on. Is the way that, am I interpreting that correctly? So if a council person provided documentation that four elected officials were in favor of hearing, they could ask for an addition onto the agenda in the beginning of the meeting, subject to a simple majority agreeing to allow it to happen. So it doesn't necessarily preclude the elected body from adding an item on the night of the meeting, as long as a simple majority approve of that. That's the way I read it. So it doesn't say we can't do it. It just says that this process is, and I think Mr. Shelley said, not a 5 vote, but a 4 vote simple majority. That even lowers the threshold so that a majority can move something forward. So that still is in here, right?
Yes, that's always been there. What Councilman Shelley was referring to is that under the reports of the mayor and council, there's a section in there that says that under that section of the agenda, no action can be taken unless there's 5 votes.
So I think the proposal is to reduce that to 4
votes.
Right.
So what's the protocol with an addition, a deletion, or deferral in the beginning?
That just gets done by a majority vote of the council.
Okay, so we're basically equalizing the numbers. We're making everything the same.
Or you could strike that sentence out, because with 4, it doesn't really add any value.
It should be taken out.
You just
Take
strike
out.
it.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry, we're talking right over you.
No, that's okay, Mayor. You all have answered my questions anyway with some of the discussions that you all had. Now, this will also carry over to board meetings, right, for CRA? This does not have no effect on, because I think we ought to provide some kind of consistent process for not only just, you know, for...
If it's informal direction until you change the process formally, we can just follow that process. So if you all have something on the CRA, we could just follow the same procedure.
I'm saying because we operate as the board,
Yes.
too, so this does not affect that.
It could if you want. If you gave us direction, say, for the CRA board meetings, follow the same process, we're happy to do that.
Okay, I'm just trying to see if we could provide some parity that is consistent, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Sir. Okay, so there was a motion and there was a second with the comment card added and with the strikeout of the 5 votes. Everything else
Those are
stays
the
the
only
same.
2 amendments.
There's only 2 amendments.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are on tab 9. Mr. Manager, tab 9.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Faircloth requested the use.
Mr. Mayor, because these are
Hold on.
be adopted until the beginning of the next meeting, Um, My suggestion is that you direct the manager to implement these rules immediately so that we're set up for the next meeting, we have the cards set up, because otherwise you're not going to adopt them until a little bit into the council meeting on Wednesday night. And, right, so, did you want to try to implement these for the next meet? You just need to give people some notice about it. Okay.
So we'll follow these rules for the,
No, they're saying just the opposite.
you're saying, yeah, I
Saying
wasn't
it's
clear
not
on
fair
that.
to follow the rules because people don't have notice. They have to sign the cards and be here by a certain time.
Well, the timeframe, again, the intent, obviously the intent is we've moved into a new building, a much more professional building. And so the sooner that we can get everybody to understand the rules and the structure of this building compared to the kind of a casual situation where we've been sitting in lounge chairs. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr.
the one question we would have is, unless you direct us tonight, if people want to come in with placards at the next meeting, they would be allowed. So the police are going to need some direction on whether they allow people into the hall with placards or not.
I think, honestly, we need to put something in place. If we start out with flexibility, we've had the decorum policy in place, but we needed to tone this thing up a little, tighten this up a little bit more because of this building. We've tightened it up, and we're going to create clarity on what is acceptable in this building. If we have to be a little lenient in the beginning on the comment card, letting people get adjusted to the fact, wait a minute, you're going to have to fill out a comment card. But in the meantime, we can't have people standing in the aisles. We can't have people standing up in the front of the building. So I think the sooner we implement that kind of a protocol, get our sergeant-at-arms in place so that people get accustomed to, this is how we're going to do business in this new building. If we have to go a little bit easier on initially with the transition from the comment card, no comment card to a comment card, we can do that as a body, and I can do that as a chair, or the vice mayor can do that as a chair. But at the end of this, the thing is we want to educate people on how we're going to have to do business in this building because of the structure of this building, because of the way this is laid out, and it's a much more formal sort of a working environment than so many of the other buildings that we've been in. So I would prefer that at least we go ahead and instruct the manager to put in the parameters with the sergeant-at-arms and the area where people can't stand and interfere with people trying to get in and out of their chair, and let's go lenient.
And the placards as well.
And the placards, that's been in the decorum policy, but it's hard to enforce. It's there. We're just expanding and being more specific with some of the places and some of the things that need to be put in place because of this building. Let's work through the comment card section. We know it's in the rules. We know we're going to do it. We'll be a little bit more lenient on the front end. If somebody comes up and they haven't filled out a card, we'll instruct, and then this body will decide, okay, next meeting, no one without a comment card is going to be able to speak.
Okay?
Is that okay with everyone? Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, who's Vice Mayor?
No, I believe Councilor Williams. No, I'm speaking on tab 9. That's why I requested to speak.
Okay.
But
I cleared you, so. Mr. Williams?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mayor. I agree with you, Mayor. I guess if we can just, I don't know how we would let people know unless we put it on Facebook. The mayor and council got new procedures in place. But whatever we can implement now, I guess is what you're saying, Mayor, whatever we can implement at this point going forward by next meeting, I mean, we're implementing it, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Right. That's my request, Mr. Williams, because we're in this brand-new building.
No, I'm just trying to get clarity.
That's my request. Implement what
we can now.
What we just talked about, implement that, except for the fact that the comment card is totally new
Right,
and
right.
foreign.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to,
Yes, sir.
I think that's what George was trying to.
Right, so the police officers will let people know ahead of time before the meeting that they can't bring the placards into the hall. And also, if somebody's blocking the aisles, we'll enforce that. As far as the common cards are concerned, we'll kind of work
We'll
into that,
move
because that's
into
going to
that,
have some
right.
growing pains along the
Right.
way. People are going to need to get used to it. And also, the sergeant of arms will be here for the next meeting right away.
Right, that would be my request, and I don't think anyone at this particular point has said no. Okay? Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams, anything else?
Yeah, I think just time specific on the implementation of the cards Or we're saying by, over the course of 2 months, a month, by next
It's-
meeting, whenever?
Two meetings, the next meeting the next public meeting we have will be the educational process.
Gotcha.
Then the following meeting will be a little tighter, but we won't necessarily, not let the public speak. But by the third meeting,
We're done.
we should have this process in place.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Vice Mayor, you were next, or Mr. I'm sorry. I got all off track. So, tab 9
I got one more comment
for
tab 8.
tab 8, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that perhaps at the next meeting, at the metal detectors, we should have some handouts before people come in and make sure that they're handed out to everybody, whether they're going to speak or not, that informs them of this. And two, that we got to make sure the placards stay out there, that they're not allowed through the metal detectors if we're not going to allow them.
Yeah, they wouldn't be allowed at all.
And I think that we should be meeting people and greeting them before they enter through the metal detectors somewhere and maybe perhaps out in the big foyer to let them know, so that they don't get up to there and there's people trying to funnel through in a line, and then we have a problem with somebody getting unruly perhaps or something.
Okay, we'll work on a
Thank you.
process.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, sir. Tab 9, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just preface this by saying I placed this on the agenda as a discussion item, as a professional courtesy to my colleagues, considering the facility, the newness of the building, and the fact that policies and procedures have not been established as it relates to this facility. And quite frankly, it's not a banquet hall. This is a government building. It's our city chamber and offices. So that is why I placed this on the agenda, not to set a precedence. But the annual Champions for Education reception and ceremony is an event that I'm not attaching my name to. This is something that I am planning from beginning to the end. It was held last year at the Homestead Miami Speedway Champions Club. And essentially what it is it recognizes educators, community leaders, faith-based organizations, business leaders for supporting education and helping to exemplify excellence in education as it relates to our local schools. So each year, my goal is to host it at a different venue within the city of Homestead. And this year, I decided that this would be a perfect backdrop for this facility. The tentative date is May 19th. It is free and open to the public. Refreshments and soft drinks will be provided, no alcoholic beverages, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. I will purchase, if approved by council, event insurance, a professional cleaning company to come in and clean the building so that it's pristine for the next day. This will not require any assistance from staff. We're doing this myself along with the Education Committee so that we're not having staff to shoulder the responsibility for putting this on. This would be a true professional and classy first-class event. And I just wanted to know if you had any comments or concerns as it relates to me personally hosting this event as my responsibility as education chair in this facility from 5:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. I'll entertain any
your
questions.
request. I'll move your request. Is there a second? I'll second. Moved and seconded. Mr. Williams.
Is it May, I'm sorry, is it May 11th? Or
May 19th.
Okay,
It'll be
May
on
19th, because I saw the 11th in here. Okay, and it's just when you come in, the bottom half?
The lobby.
Oh, okay. I have no qualms with that, Vice. Everything you've done has always been
Thank
top
you.
tier, so it never even entered my mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Where am I? Tab 10. Mr. Manager.
Mayor, the South Dade Chamber of Commerce is requesting the use of the City Hall lobby to hold one of its monthly business networking after-hour events on Tuesday, May 17th at 5:30 p.m. The purpose of the event is to introduce the local business community to the new City Hall. The Chamber is expecting about 100 members chamber members and guests. The chamber will provide tables and chairs, hors d'oeuvres, and alcoholic beverages.
And one of the points, I mean, again, under the guidelines, we're trying to get the community to buy into this building and have everyone come and experience this building. I had a conversation with Skip Alford, who's the CEO of the chamber, and we did a really fantastic grand opening. We had a lot of the public here, and it was awesome. Begonia, you and Zach and your team did a great job and showed off the building, and the people really, really was a good event. And this was kind of the concept of putting that same kind of an effort into the business community to get them to be able to come into the Grand Hall, much like you're talking about with the teachers. The issue, or the main only question was they do an after hours and they do it at different locations, and usually I think they do have beer and wine, and we would also have all the. I mean, I'm going to speak, but I'm going to be one of the main sponsors financially to try to help them. They're going to gain sponsorships as well, but they would come in and again, if it's the question would be, Mr. Manager, if we would want to do something like tours, take the business community, as business leaders from the reception through the building, much like we did with the open event. Again, there's only 100 people. Now, that's going to have a cost. I don't know what that cost would be, and I don't know if that's so expensive that the chamber and or whatever sponsorships that I could provide as a council person to offset that, so that there's zero financial impact to the city. So do we have any idea?
We don't, although if the council is fine with the event, we would pose that we'll find a way to staff the tours without having to charge anybody, because we have been looking to get people through the building and see what we have here. So I think the costs associated with the actual party would be one thing, and if you're comfortable with us doing the tours, we'll find a way to get staff here to do that.
Mr. Burgess?
Stuff
I know, it's confusing.
My question is, with the alcoholic beverages being served and all, does that open us up to any liability through the city? And if so, do we have the insurance to cover it, or do we need insurance to cover this, or what is the deal? Because I've never seen alcohol served inside the city hall before, and I'm not sure I'm real comfortable with it tonight.
And again, this is part of, the fact that because this is an after hours, it is the business community, this is what they normally do, this is what was talked about or was requested. It doesn't mean that it's all or nothing.
I'm just wondering what liabilities we have.
Right, well, as a given, we do the same thing at the community center. We have similar types of events, and I know, Richard or George answered the question because I'm not qualified.
If this was looked at as an event like we do in the community center, there's forms and deposits and insurance issues. The question for you tonight, I think, would be, is that what this is, or is this an opportunity for the business community to come in here, see the building, and you can look at this one item and not look at it as a major policy statement, and look at it as an extension of the tours that we've been doing to roll out to City Hall, and then you can tackle the bigger policy issues in the future, or you can start making policy now. It's really your call. Is there liability? Well, there's liability anytime somebody walks in the building. The question is, for an event like this, do you want to have a special requirements?
Two drink minimum?
There's one thing we probably would be, if you opt for the alcohol, we do have some agreement with FOP that if there's alcohol, there would be some sort of a detail that would be required. So that cost, I think, would be absorbed by the sponsors of the event. But beyond that, it's really, it's just a judgment call on your part of how you want whether this event is okay, and also by voting on this event, are you really making a policy statement, or are you just deciding on this one tonight? And
any vote we make up here that pertains to this type of activity would be a policy statement, because it's like we spoke about earlier tonight. You open up the door for the next group to come and say, I want to do it. And then when we tell them no, then, well, you did it for the chamber or whatever. So no matter, it is a policy vote, no matter how we look at it tonight.
although if I was going to make a distinction, if you wanted to do this one but not make any major policy decisions for the future, is that we could incorporate this as part of the rollout of the city hall and introduction.
Well, I don't think the city should be up there serving alcohol in a grand opening.
I see. Well, I can't
And,
speak to that.
and again, that's a policy question, and that's in front of us tonight. The issue was, when they normally do, and I know most of you have been to some of these events, they normally do have a beer or wine and hors d'oeuvres, and then just a little social event. And it really was couched at getting the business community into the building. If I don't speak for the chamber, but I don't know if it's a deal breaker one way or the other, but in the
Well, I may
context
be a
of
minority, so I may not matter.
but in the context of the discussion, again, we don't have, it's much like we just discussed the new protocols because of this new building. There are things we have a balcony area with kitchenettes. How are we going to use that? This building is different from any other building that we've ever had, and it's going to require a little bit of massaging through this as to how we as policymakers dictate what we do with this building, because I agree with you, Mr. Burgess, that we're in kind of no man's land right now. We've never been here before, so we have to. This is kind of like walking very slowly. I think the vice mayor's event is a great event. I think this being an extension of what we just did, minus a beer or wine, but it's an extension of trying to get the community to buy into this new building. And this is their building. It's not a new office for me. It's not a new office for the manager. It's really their building, and we're going to have to find out over time how we use it, because like I said, you got a second floor balcony, and on both sides it's really set up for some sort of an event, and we're going to have to deal with that. So, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just for a frame of reference, last year when we held the Champions for Education event at the Champions Club, Homestead Miami Speedway, we served alcoholic beverages. But this year I opted not to, because I just didn't feel comfortable serving alcoholic beverages in this facility. So I support the event. I'm not comfortable with the alcoholic beverages. It just doesn't sit well with me. And then if we decide to continue to host events here, then we have to determine, are we going to charge? Are we going to allow alcoholic beverages? And that's something that I don't feel comfortable with. That's why I decided to have just soft drinks.
Perfect. Mr. Shelley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was hoping we kind of avoided the general policy discussion tonight just because it's late already. But I think now that it's been raised, it's important. I think for both the prior vote we just had or the prior event that we just discussed and this event, for me in my box, I've been trying to think, how do I probably put this in my mind? How do I make these votes consistent across the board, as I try to do with all the issues? And, I think to the extent that if one of us sponsors an event or has an event or it's our event, then I have no problem with that. I think that's an easy policy to make for me, because we are stewards of this building and we're showcasing this building and we're hosting, and hopefully we take care of this building in a good fashion. The event is before us now for discussion. If we couch it as an event, we start to get into that policy, that muddled policy works. I think I can support it. Right? I know I can support it if it's considered to be part of this grand opening education system that we're doing. We had the grand opening for the public, so this is a grand opening for the business community through the Chamber of Commerce. It makes perfect sense to me to introduce our business community through our chamber, which is supposed to be our connection to our smaller businesses in town, to provide them a tour so they can see where developmental services is, or they can see where general services, they can actually see where they're going to be conducting their business, so that when they get here they're not confused, on how this works and how that works and who this person is and who that. All of that makes perfect sense to me, and I can support it in that event or in that type of scenario. But to call it one of their regular chamber events, now we get into that muddied waters of what are we actually setting precedents for? Are we not setting precedents? So I'd like to try to avoid that if possible, and I can support it the way it is. As far as the alcohol issue goes, I've kind of muddled that around. I don't know that I have a hard and fast decision on my mind, but I think that a government building such as this is got a different feel and persona than, say, a community center would, or an event where you would have alcohol as part of a party atmosphere, where here I think it's more of a dignified working environment, professional environment that that could potentially have a future in hosting something as we discussed and figure out what that policy might be. But I don't know that it's done in a party and/or a alcoholic atmosphere. That seems a little bit different. So that's a little bit harder for me to grasp at this point in time. I'm not completely opposed to it, but as I sit now, that's kind of where I'm leaning. So,
Thank you, sir. Mr. Williams?
Yes, Mayor, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I guess what we're doing is semantics. We don't want to call it an event. We don't. It is what it is. I think as it relates to how we couch this, as far as what we want to call it, but it is what it is. It's one of their monthly, networking, and if it's to showcase, to take pride into a building in which they're very proud of, the chamber, I don't have a problem with that. If it's their normal monthly, piece where all of that is involved with the alcohol, as long as there's some bourbon there, I think that everybody will be on equal level. I'm just teasing, but I think I don't have a problem with whether they serve. It's not something that we're going to be continuing. But if we roll it out on the come explore the new city hall, and then if this is one of their contributions or them trying to do that, then I don't see any problem with it, Mayor, since you're sponsoring all of it anyway.
That's exactly right. No.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Maldonado?
I like how it was said we are stewards of this building, and I think that we would be responsible in what would take place here. So I would definitely support this item that's come before us to, for the business community. I think it's very important. And I'm okay with if we're going to have any drinks, alcoholic beverages. I guess if anything, I would just say, that kitchenette in the back and that the balcony that we have, that would be an ideal place if that's going to take place, rather than just everywhere. I hate to have people coming in here and the dais and having drinks set up here and all that. So maybe if we just contain it back there, I think it'd be fine.
And the point.
That's my opinion on that.
Well, the point would be that obviously, if you're going to be out there and you have a drink in your hand, we're not allowing drinks in here. That we've got carpeting and everything. So there will be, protocols that will be set up. The issue with the back area, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, but I think you can only do about 50 people there.
The fire code says 49.
So 49. So unfortunately, maybe. Right. So unfortunately, that may be a really, great place for this type of event, but because of the numbers, it may not suffice at this particular point. So the issue was to have it in the Grand Hall, and it's not going to be a monthly event for the chamber. This is the rollout of the new city hall, and that was the way it was always intended. So
I'm okay with it. As far as my concern, I'm okay with the event moving forward.
All right, sir. Thank you. Mr. Attorney, now, I know that there is, I think I spoke to Mr. Jones, we can buy a small policy, additional policy to help cover any additional exposure as per se to the city that would, $200-300, I think is what I was told. So in this particular case, what would happen is we would also cover the city with an additional rider, 1 night, 4 hour, 6 hour, whatever it is, policy that would, again, cover any questions about any additional liability because of what's going on. And I have to agree with the manager. I mean, if somebody comes into the building in the middle of the day intoxicated and falls over and hits their head, we're liable anyway. So it's just a function of, this is really kind of a one-time event, showcase event, bring the business community in, and it's an after hours, and we were actually going to ask the PIO to not just deal with the exact, the only ones that are members of the chamber, but stretch this to all businesses as much as we can to get them to come and see the building. Mr. Attorney?
First of all, I was going to say, speaking to the manager, I think
You turn yourself off.
Sorry.
Now you turned yourself off.
When it's red, you're hot.
Okay, green.
Sorry, slow. It may be, we could check our existing policies. It may be that that there's not an exclusion for alcohol beverage, so there may be no cost. But I think our risk manager could take that, and then if there is an additional cost, I think would probably be relatively small.
And that's to give some comfort level to the, to the council that we wouldn't necessarily expose the city. We would have a rider or a coverage specific to this event for whatever amount of time that we're going to.
It may be covered, and so, once the risk manager looks at it, you may be already covered for it, but in addition, if it's needed, then you could get either, so we'll be covered either way.
Okay. All right, any other questions on tab 10, Chamber of Commerce?
Mayor, I just wasn't clear on the alcohol, yes or no.
Well, it's in here now, so that's what we're going to vote on. We'll see if
Okay.
it passes. Is there a motion to approve? I'll second. Any final comments? Let's do a roll call to make sure. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Roth? Yes. Councilman Williams?
Yes.
Councilman Burgess?
Yes.
Councilman
Have a serious discussion about future uses.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough? Mayor Porter?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We'll make sure it's a very well done event, and you'll be proud. Tab 11. Mr. Shelley? Oh.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is another initiative from the Tourist Advisories Committee, and that we had a meeting, I think it was a month ago or so. One of the issues that was discussed was that we as Homestead should have a seat on the Greater Miami Convention and Visitor Bureau Board. I think back when Councilwoman Waldman served on the council, she was a member of the GMCVB board, but now that she's no longer a member of council, we don't have official representation on that board. And so what I brought this forth before you guys for was so that either the mayor and or by resolution, the council can take a stance and say and request that we would like to have that board membership on the GMCVB so that we have a say in tourist-related items and marketing-related items here in South Dade, specifically for the city of Homestead. And so by having either the mayor write a letter or by passing a resolution, then I can send a request up there and we can start going through that process to see what it takes to actually get on that board and can we get a seat on that board.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Burgess?
No, I would just second what he said. We had looked at it in the past and we were kind of shunned away because of a seat already taken by former Councilwoman Waldman. Even though she wasn't on the tourism committee, she had befriended them long before and continued her participation. But I think it should be a resolution by the entire dais here to show the strength and the message that we all support the tourism committee and the tourism for our area and that. So I think perhaps a resolution requesting a seat from everybody would be a little more potent up there. Thank you.
And we need to be careful to not do what happened before and it be a name of a person. That's what got us in trouble before, because I mean all of us are going to rotate in and out, and so when Ms. Wallman left, Judy Wallman was the holder of the position. So however it gets in the resolution, we need to make sure that it's designated for the city of Homestead. Mr. Williams?
Yes, that was my question. It was to see if somebody could provide the history of how we attained the seat before or what have you. Does anybody know how was it regulated, or was it any? I'm not real educated on this.
Let me get Mr. Shelley in here. Mr. Shelley?
I don't have an answer for you that I officially know the answer for. I know that Councilwoman Waldman was involved with what was the other? There's another broader tourism-related entity besides GMCVB, and I think she was involved in that for many years. I think she's personal friends with Bill Talbert, who's the chairman of GMCVB, and so I think through that she was appointed to serve on that committee. I don't know whether it was part of her council seat position or her membership here on this council, or whether she was appointed completely separate and apart. I think that when this question was asked by the board a few years ago, the answer came back that she had been appointed as an individual, separate apart from her position as a council person.
Okay.
And so she still, I believe, sits on that board as an individual capacity, but we as a city body do not have a say or do not have a membership on that board. And so that's the purpose of this, is to say that we as a city want a seat on that board because, again, we are doing a lot of tourist initiative items, and we want to have a say in how we're marketed, and we want to say in how South Dade is viewed by GMCVB.
Mayor, can I ask you
Yes,
what's the capacity of the board? How big is the board?
We don't have that answers yet either. I know that Michelle reached out to them and asked that question, and what they indicated is that once they get an indication from us, either by resolution or by letter, that we will also ask those questions as far as what is the number of board members, are there any vacancies, as we start to try to navigate this to find a seat on that board. So those are still be determined. I can come back with answers for you.
Okay, and one more for your consideration through this process. What has been the history of City of Homestead and the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau?
Prior to probably what,
That's
2
been
years?
our relationship as a city.
As prior to 2 years ago, I'm not sure that they had a lot of involvement with the city of Homestead or really promoting South Dade much in general. But I know that Councilman Burgess and the Tourist Advisory Committee reached out and worked with them, as well as TIVA worked with them. And so now what we've done is we were able to pool some monies together. And in fact, I think the Tourism Advisory Committee put $5,000 or $10,000 in, which was matched by TIVA, which was matched by another grant. And so before you know it, they had $40,000 or $50,000. GMCVB has produced a video that promotes Homestead, that promotes South Dade, that promotes the parks. So they have taken notice of Homestead. They've worked with us on the MIA, when I worked with them with MIA to create the ads and the column wraps to go in the airport to promote the trolley and to promote the parks. They volunteered their time, their money, and all their labor to put those together and put together the marketing campaign. So they've taken notice of Homestead. They're making up for time lost. But I still think it would be good for us to actually have a seat on that board versus just, kind of loosely being associated with them.
And one more item for consideration, if that does pass, is that how would that be determined? Would it be somebody from the tourism board to sit on that board, or how did you envision? Is it a council person? How would we all come to that consideration?
We have not had a further discussion on who the appointee would be. I mean, in my vision, it would be one of us, or either the elected body, or it would be a city staff member. But that would probably be at the purview of the mayor, based on any other committee that the mayor appoints representatives to serve.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor.
No.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I was just going to add, and Mr. Williams asked some of the questions, was Councilwoman Waldman was the one that started the Tourism Committee back 6, 7 years ago. I don't have the exact number. And through her involvement and her friendship with Bill Talbert, who is the CEO of the Greater Miami Visitor Bureau, she was able to secure a seat up there. And that's how that seat came about. Unfortunately, as Councilman Shelley said, it wasn't a transferable seat in their eyes. So we had been, a year and a half, Mr. Craig, he's the chairman of the Tourism Committee, we had been trying to secure a seat up there. And it was difficult because they didn't want to really talk to us, because they didn't want to step on anybody's toes, and they didn't want to give us a second seat because then we would have too much representation. But we were even unable to find attendance records or anything like that from the past. So I applaud Councilman Shelley for continuing on to fight for the seat up there now that Councilwoman Waldman isn't here representing the city. They've done great things for us. They've come down here and given speeches. Rolando and Bill have both been down here on several occasions and asked what they can do to help in the past. And I'm sure that they've reached out to Councilman Shelley, or he's been able to get a hold of them. The grants that he spoke about have taken that pool up to, $40-some thousand, where we've been able to send a representative either from TIVA, which we're partners with down there in Florida City, or one of our committee members has been able to go, and they stand there at the GMCV board booth, and they represent Homestead. And we've got logo bags that we give out and stuff like that people can take home to remember us. And so it's been a great partnership, and I think having some representation up there would even make it a greater partnership for the city and for the surrounding area.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually was, met with William Talbert last week at one of the committees that I'm appointed through, through Dennis's Moss, Commissioner Dennis Moss's office, which is called Neat Street, and we actually have our meetings there at the location at where the Greater Chambers, and I spoke to him. He said the same thing. The first thing he kind of, he said there was some discussions happening with Homestead. That the TIVA was the first place of contact, because I think we're all on the same page in wanting to get on board and making sure that tourism is, I guess, something, we're seeing growth and interest in tourism here in Homestead, and so we want to maximize that. So I think everyone would like to somewhat be a part of it, and that's kind of how I approached them. I didn't even know that you had spoken to them or your committee has been working through them. But I started asking the questions as well, and, how do we get involved? Who do we talk to? They pointed us to TIVA, and then they said, well, we'll come down and have a discussion. So, I applaud your effort and what you're doing. I would definitely go with the recommendation that we have an elected official be appointed to the board. I think that would just fall under kind of like the Beacon Council. I know I'm appointed to the Beacon Council, and that's done through the mayor. And I can tell you that is an important process. I mean, being an elected official there, I could see the difference, and when we engage them or we're involved, and they see that we're sitting at the table. So when we do show up, they take notice, and so I think that's would be my recommendation. I think they asked the question, who's going to be appointed? That would be something that's important. I think that at some point we will all like to partake of it, and so I think that's an important discussion I think we should have. I would have interest in it as well, and to be a part of it, even though that I don't have the tourism committee. I think that we've spoken about, and I think kind of our format is that we are our liaisons, when it has to do with anything that happens here with the city of Homestead. So again, I'm meeting with William Talbert. He's definitely taken notice of Homestead and wishes us to be a part of what's happening. I do believe that regardless of what position we take, we can go over there and we can partake. I think it's just getting more traction over there. Having that constant person there is going to make a difference. And if it gets to the point to where an elected official is put in position to partake and be a representative, I would also ask that their staff member would be directly appointed or working with them, because there's going to be some times that person cannot make it up there, but we need to constantly have a presence up there. And so I would recommend that we also send a staff member up there as well, if that's the direction we're going to go to. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you, sir. I need a motion. It's 8:36. I need a motion to extend the meeting for 30 minutes. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Mr. Shelley?
Yeah, just from the city attorney, do we need, or for this one, since assuming we go with a resolution, then the council will give you direction. You can draft that resolution, and then it would come before us at the next council meeting.
Right, or you could just direct the mayor to send a letter to Bill Talbot and ask. I had my light on because my impression is that it's sort of a pay-to-play, and in order to get on their executive board, I know that some of our other communities pay. I know Bal Harbor has a seat on there, and it was a good deal of money to become part of it's not a governmental body. It's it's a trade organization, really. And I haven't looked at it recently, but at one point I know you basically had to join. And then once you joined, which was substantial, then you got to. Right. But I think if the council just directs the mayor to write a letter, and I've also just texted Bill Talbot, and he'll get back to me too.
Perfect. Great.
And what I can do, if you guys would like to, I can draft a letter, sign it, and pass it to each one of you for signature, so that it goes up there as in unison.
Yeah, I think, and that's fine. I think it's as long as we can deliver that message that it's not just one of us asking, but it's us as a body asking. That's really the key message I want to deliver, is that we want kind of our seat at the table in whatever form that ends up taking in the end. But because what I found is that right now some of the messaging is being driven by the greater South Dade area, which is great for everybody. I mean, the rising tide floats all boats. But I want to make sure that we as a city are are kind of the lead on those marketing items and on those tourist-related concepts. And that's where I think the key is to deliver that message that we want to be, instead of them contacting TIVA first, they should be contacting the city of Homestead first, and then working in conjunction with all the surrounding communities. And that's really what the purpose of this message is, as we're working toward trying to find out what it looks like.
Is everybody okay with a letter signed by each of us, one letter going with all signatures?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the letter, but I think the resolution embodies the, connectiveness of the power of the council.
It still would only have my signature on it unless we put
Well,
all
no,
of them.
well, I think the resolution will have all of what our action is, but
Show vote.
I'm not, it doesn't matter.
I guess I thought was there a spirit of time here? Is there a timing issue? Because if there's no timing issue, a resolution is fine. If there's a timing issue, it's easy to have a letter drafted tomorrow, and by the end of the day, we could all have it signed and sent to Talbot. Okay. All right, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry.
No, I was
Resolution.
just raising the issue. There's not really bothering me one way or the other. I just was raising the issue.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, sir.
So, Richard, we'll do a resolution.
We'll have it on the agenda for Wednesday.
Thank you, sir. We got all, did we vote, we voted on that? I'm sorry? Okay, is there a motion to approve requesting a seat on their board with a resolution? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 14, Mr. Roth. No, you're not on. You're on now.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm bringing this up just to get some clarity and to get some direction as to how to actually appoint somebody to this board of public art. And there's a couple of requirements in the code. I've been working with Development Services, Joe and Michelle, and they've been kind of guiding me through the process of helping this board become a productive board. It's missing two appointees at this point. I have one that I could bring forward tonight. All six of my colleagues up here are required to appoint a member to this board. We have two vacancies. The Vice Mayor has an appointee on this board. John Burgess has an appointee. Steve Shelley does, as well as Mayor Porter does. And I'm going to need one from both Elvis and Jimmy Williams. I'm not sure who put Mr. Romero Orta on board, as it's not listed here. I don't know if Development Services has any idea who put him on that board, but does anybody want to claim him?
I think there was a vacant, excuse me, Mayor.
Mr. Burgess?
Damn that thing.
Good, you got it.
I think there was an opening, and we had asked some council people for names and never received one. And he came back to me as a recommendation from the chair at the time. And I said, certainly, because I know that they were having a very tough time getting quorums. And I believe that's how it was done, just to try to help them to get some ability to move forward and that. So that's how that came about.
So what would be proper to do at this point? We've got two vacancies. We have,
I'm going to try to,
Hold on, Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen, is that okay?
Yeah.
Mr.
Thanks.
Mullen?
Yeah, so if you need one from myself, I could work on that this week and have it by Friday, and name by Friday. If that's okay, if that's, kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, we need to get the board full. As you said, there's been a problem with quorums, so they can't even have a meeting to move things forward. This is a board that has about $500,000 in its coffers to do some artwork throughout the city, and we just can't seem to get it moving forward. So when the mayor tasked me with this challenge of liaison to this board, as I said, we made some efforts with Development Services and Michelle. They've been great as far as information and providing that. There's a frustration with the quorums, and I think what I need is a little direction on appointing members to this board at this point. We have one that's, I believe, qualified, that is in the audience tonight, and I'm not sure if this is the proper venue, or should we wait for Mr. Maldonado to bring us another appointee and do it at another meeting?
If you want to bring them forward now and subject to the approval of the council, we can do that one tonight, and then Mr. Maldonado, we can do it another, or you can wait. It's really your committee. It's how you want to structure it.
Right. Would it be, if Mr. Maldonado can get me one this week, would we be able to do this during my time period at the end of council next week?
Richard, he could add that in at the end of the council meeting. You there?
Question.
Okay.
Question.
Hold on just a second. Mr. Maldonado?
Yeah, just a question, because, I don't know how this committee is working where, we have some committees that we either make the appointments or, that the liaison is the one who's making all the appointments. And then we have some committees where you're looking for a representative from each elected official up here that's going to put that nomination. So in this case, I think, what's the history on this? Have we always done it that an appointee? All right, so.
And the member.
Okay, so then I'll go ahead and we'll follow that. And then on top of that, the only thing I would need to know is the requirement, whether it's a resident or someone that's not a resident but works here, art related, or, is interested art related. And if that's the case, I guess we'd have to look at our what's the numbers, because I know we could have, I think 4 residents and 2 non. And so we need to know that information as well.
Well, here's what the code reads. It's 2 individuals chosen from the following disciplines: landscape, architecture, urban planning, engineering, and related design discipline. 1 professional artist, 1 private citizen, knowledgeable in the field of public art, education, or community affairs, and 1 private citizen from the development community. It's not specific to resident or non-resident. To give you background on who's on that board now, we have Robert Barnes, he's a resident. We have Richard Medlock, he's not a resident. We have Efren Nunez, who's the chairman of the committee, is not a resident. We have Stephen Walker is a resident, and Ramiro Rotter is also a resident. So it's not specific to, as we had with the discussion with the charter review, to resident or non-resident.
I would just ask, just Mayor, if you don't mind, I would just ask for maybe just have staff send that over so I could kind of just make sure as I look for my appointee, I would have someone by Friday.
The other provision in the charter was specific to the committees, boards and committees had to consist of a supermajority. Richard, it has to.
LACE's committee says is that the members are suggested by council members according to the categories that Councilman Roth read, but otherwise subject to the provisions, the general provisions, and the general provisions say that you need a supermajority of every committee to be city residents that have resided here for at least 1 year.
Okay.
There needs to be 5.
So there needs to be 5.
There needs to be 5 city residents, and if you can find 5 residents of those persuasions, then you need to get those 5. If you can't, obviously 2 can be non-residents that maybe fit that criteria or that question of disciplines.
Got it.
Call it.
Have that by Friday.
You'll need this, so we'll get this for you, Elvis.
Mr. Williams?
Who did you, this is the frustrating part about it, is that, when are we making all the appointments? I thought we were making all the appointments in April, this month, for all boards, because I thought we had determined that, was my understanding that, Mayor, that you want to make appointments for all the boards, because I'm having the same issue with my board, so so I can get some clarity on this issue, because I didn't even know that I had a vacancy on this board, and for my appointee. So, Mr. Roth, are you, who's the person that you have in the audience that you said you wanted appointed on the board?
Larry Deal's in the audience here. He's made application and gone through the clerk's office to be appointed
This
to the
guy
board.
here?
Yeah.
This guy?
But just so you know, that the current board's term doesn't expire until October of this year. So the mayor gave us an option a meeting or two ago to wipe boards clean and to start over again.
Right, that's what.
So we have appointments here that are
So
on.
my
till-
appointment could be Mr. Deal then. That way you don't have to wait for mine. All right, Mr. Deal, you're my appointment. Okay. All right.
So
Thank
where
you,
do we
Mayor.
go from here?
Are these all the names that you want at this current time?
No, we still need one from Elvis. We still have the.
But I'm saying
full
you're
void.
comfortable with, these are your recommendations?
No,
or
these
you
are the
just-
current board members.
So if that position comes open and expires in October.
Right.
I mean, are we gonna be back here?
Well, that's
again?
what, I don't know if the mayor wants to start from scratch from this point forward and rename all the boards and put new people on all the boards,
Well,
or,
that's- yeah,
because
that
each
would-
board's probably going to expire at different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the problem, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good, no.
No, the issue with this board was, as you stated, you've got money and you've got inactivity in the board. You can't get a quorum, you can't move anything forward, so we need to take a look at why. And put people on here that can and/or are willing to participate in this process so we can do something with these funds to help beautify the city. So if you have any record of attendance and we can point to why so-and-so never shows up to the meeting, we need to replace that person with an active member of the community somehow. People have issues that are sometimes out of their control, but at the end of the day, we have to have a functioning board that moves projects forward, and it requires attendance.
Right.
As a simple thing.
Right.
Hold on just a second. Mr.
Yes.
I think Richard brings some clarification to what you were just saying. If you read the
Hold on.
216.
Hold on, I can only have so many mics on it shuts people off. Mr. Attorney, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything, but Councilman Burgess asked me what
Did you say what you were going to tell Mr. Burgess?
That's a secret.
Okay.
It says that in the event that a board member shall be absent from 3 consecutive duly called meetings of the board, or has 3 unexcused absences in a calendar year, notice of such absences shall be forwarded by the city clerk to the city council, which may elect to remove the board member.
So,
So- So here's what we can do. If the agenda will be set by Friday, if you can put your appointees into this, send it to the clerk, she'll put it under my business at the end of Wednesday's meeting, and we'll appoint your board, if that's the case, we'll appoint that on the Wednesday night council meeting under my business, subject to approval of the council.
Right. But in all honesty, this is not my board. This is a board that's created by this council.
But you got tagged with
Liaison.
cleaning it up.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
trying to
So that's
make
what
it
we're trying to
functioning.
do. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Michelle, for dealing with me and helping me through this process, because without you and without your information, we'd still be sitting with no quorum and no board and no action or anything. So thank you guys for that.
So,
Mr. Williams?
yeah, so are the persons that you have inherited, are they active? I mean,
Well, I'd rather not get in. I've spoken
no,
to
well,
most
well,
of
no,
them,
because
but
if it's not, I mean, if you have a board that's not participating, it's not, for me, it's not personal, other than you're trying to get things done. And I understand when you have a board that people show up, the meeting's at 6, they show up at 7:30, that's, in order for you to do what you need to do on the board, are these persons active on the board? Because we'll be back here at the same problems. You still won't be able to spend no money if they're not coming to the meetings.
I've spoken to each of them, and let's see what happens in the future.
Okay, so do they still have a desire?
They do.
Okay. So my appointee, are you gonna come to all the meetings? Because I don't want my appointee late to any meetings, and so I hope he can do that, so I don't have a problem moving this forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Shelley?
Yeah, no, I was just going to reiterate, I think that this board's been in place for quite some time, and they may have had one meeting that they actually had a quorum. I don't know if have they even had a quorum ever?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Me? Yes, sir. We've had quorums. We had a little bit more than half of the meetings last year and about one-third of the meetings this year, so.
Okay, so
not-
they actually have, so they made some progress since the last time I inquired. At one time, they couldn't even get a quorum to make a decision, but it is, I think it has money, it can help beautify the city, it can help add some real aesthetic qualities and landmarks, and it'd be great for them to meet and move forward and make some decisions. So I applaud you for your efforts, and hopefully we can get them to do some good things.
Yeah. We're going to move this. Mr. Roth will put his list together, get it to the clerk. It'll be under the business on Wednesday, under the mayor's business. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Tab 15, you're up again, Mr. Roth.
This is,
Hold on a second.
I just communicated with Bill Talbert, and Bill said if we send him a name, he'll consider it for the board,
Okay.
for the GMCB
But
report.
again, you said send him a name.
Send him a name.
Okay, they're asking for a name. Is that circle that we're going to get back into? Because if we apply a name of John Burgess, the position doesn't belong to the city of Homestead, it belongs to John Burgess. That's where we got.
Right.
So we got to, let's tweak that a little bit because it
Right.
needs to be the city of Homestead.
Right.
Great news.
Okay, but again,
Pardon?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'll need to put that in the resolution and have them review it because it cannot, really don't want it to be a name of a person.
Right.
Because that's where we had the problem before. So-
Right. I mean, we'll do the resolution, but I can just ask them whether they would consider putting someone on the board as designated by the city council, the city of Homestead.
Exactly, something
And then
to that effect.
Then we've sort of institutionalized it as opposed to have it being identified with the individual person.
Individual person, exactly. Okay, so tab 15. Mr. Roth. Oh, got to turn you on. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a discussion that I wanted to bring up. It's been brought to my attention, and maybe a few of my other colleagues have heard, of a business tax license that is now being imposed on investors that own more than 2 properties in the city of Homestead. And what I wanted to try to clear up is why is it all of a sudden being enforced, and how in the code has it been ignored for so many years? And also, enforcement of it at this point, is it directed at a specific community? Now, I guess I'll have to ask staff and all these people for this information. But basically what I would like to see at this point, before I go into a whole realm of discussion, is to, and you'll see a packet that I handed you guys today. I'm sorry I was so late. I'm new to this process, so I'm trying to learn on the fly here. But these were actual letters that were sent out to property owners, and it's specific to them maintaining or operating a business without a valid business license. A need for license for all rental units located in the city of Homestead. So I've been in real estate 15, 20 years now. I've never even heard of this. And all of a sudden, investors in our community are being slapped with a $250 fine, which I'm sure that's not the case at this point. I just need some clarity, and I think we need to explore what we want to do as a council, and I think it needs to be explained clearer that when you walk into one of our offices and you're handed this piece of paper, which is page 965, that simply says apartments minimum, single-family homes, more than 2 with the same owner, $58, duplex, residential, absentee owner. There's nothing that relates back to anything that I could find that explains what these are for. I mean, maybe I'm not reading it right. Maybe I just don't understand it, but it's just a number, It's just a code, but it doesn't revert back to anything. So you walk into one of our offices, and they give you page 955, and it's highlighted B, and for the purpose of this article, any persons holding themselves out to the public at a given location by signed printed matter, classified section, telephone directory or city directory, blah, blah, blah. If you're offering a service or if you're offering property to the public. Now, that sounds like to me that's a retail location that has signs up, that has printed matter, that is a classified section of the telephone directory, and on and on and on. And property would be goods that you would buy or services you would get from that person. When the police officers recover property, it's not a house, it's personal property. So I'm not sure if there's a good explanation to why all of a sudden this is being enforced on some investors in the city of Homestead. Be that as it may, what I would like to do at this point would be to suspend all actions until we can figure out what is going on and why these people are being served with these notices. Just for a point of reference, this is according to the Dade County Tax Assessor's Office. The city of Homestead has about 22,867 properties in its city. Properties with no homestead exemption, which is hard for me to believe that this is the number, is 15,863. So there's only like 7,000 properties in our city that have a homestead exemption. So that pretty much tells me that there's a lot of people who invested in our city during the time when property values had crashed. A lot of these investors that came into our town in 2008, 2009, when nobody could buy a house, bought up these properties and saved some communities by virtue of purchasing these homes, paying the association fees, and renting these units out to people who couldn't buy properties because the market was so bad, nobody was lending money, and all these things. So I can go on and go on and go on and go on about this. Nobody could seem to really give me an answer when I spoke with Code and a couple other people, and an explanation to why this was going on. I didn't really get a whole lot of answers from anybody for stats and numbers, and I think if Code wants to speak in reference to how many new business licenses had been affected this year to previous years. Just to give you another number from the Dade County Tax Appraiser's Office, there's approximately 893 owners of properties with 2 units or more in the city. And I kind of find it hard to believe that there's 893 actual business tax licenses for these properties owners. So all I want to try to do is clear up what's going on, get to a solution, help the investors that have invested in our city. It could become a big problem if these investors get wind of this, because it's not just the $58 for the license. Once they get into our system, they have to go through inspections. Each of those inspections cost time and cost money. There are people in the city that own 50, 60, 70 units. So I just want to get some clarity for our investors who have gotten these letters. One of the ladies who has been she's owned property in the city since 1992. She owns over 100 properties. I mean, the financial hardship for somebody to go through inspections, and I don't think the city has the manpower to handle that much stuff at one time. So I don't know where we go with this. I don't know if anybody has any questions up here that
Mayor, let me get the manager when you're finished. Mr. Manager.
First of all, I spent quite a bit of time with the staff this afternoon just to prepare for this discussion. I'm in the unenviable position of having to defend or at least explain a law that was passed back in 1995. And so I can't really speak to the legislative history. I don't have that information, but I can kind of just give you some points. This law was passed in 1995, and I think the concept was there's a bunch of cities that have this, and then there's a bunch of cities that do not have this, and there's a bunch of cities that have a variation of this, i.e., when do you start requiring licenses for rental properties, okay? And so if you look at some cities, they don't require it at all. Some cities have what we have, and some cities have a higher threshold. You have to have 4 or more, 4 plexes or more, so there's different tiers. What's interesting about this is, I mean, in terms of have we started doing anything new? Code tells me that they do this on an annual basis. There's a handful that get cited, and what I have so far is 2015, 31 got cited, 2016, 23 got cited. The reason I don't have more years for you is because they have to go and kind of manually do this. There's not a computer program they have to get us more than those years, but if we need more years to establish, well, the code department tells me, division tells me that they've done this regularly. Now, why haven't you heard about it before? I'll give you the best example. And the numbers are really astounding. Only 41% of the homes in Homestead are owner-occupied. Okay, so almost 60%, likely, a good portion of those require licenses according to the law that we have on the books. Of that, we have 51 licenses for duplex and 27 licenses for single-family homes. And so there's no doubt that you could, on any given day, you can go ahead and cite. Now, there's another piece of history here that we have some notations on, but we don't have the follow-up. But in 2006, it appears as if the staff came to the council and said, we really think this is a priority, and we'd like more staff so that we can actually take this thing seriously and start inspecting and citing and digging in on this particular issue. There was a lot of pushback from what it looks like, and it was at a workshop on this issue that somebody says, well, staff, go ahead and follow up and get back to us, and then we haven't found anything beyond that. So my guess is, absent any additional information, that there was some feedback that maybe we shouldn't get too serious about this, and so it just kind of sat. And so code has periodically, as things have come to our attention, the recent citation came as a consequence, not the one, there was at least one that came as a consequence of a complaint, and because of the area that it was in, a decision was made then to look at some other areas so that it didn't look like a particular area was being targeted, and as a consequence, a property owner with many properties kind of got caught in the net. And so the issue then becomes for you all is you do have a license. This is really for us, it's not a revenue issue because as you see, we don't issue very many licenses and the revenue amounts to thousands of dollars. The pros and the cons of this issue are, on the one hand, you have a lot of rental properties in your city. And so from local government's perspective, and I'm just giving you both sides, local government's perspective is when you have renters in rentals, if the government never has an opportunity to inspect, what happens is sometimes there's violations that sometimes lead to safety issues, and therefore it's one tool in the government's tool bag in order to deal with code violations, also issues involving neighborhood aesthetics. The flip side to that is there's many cities that don't have this, and life goes on. So it's really something that you all want to think about and consider, but it's not new, and it's anemic. So whatever you want to do is fine with us. I think staff is here to answer questions if you'd like to ask them questions. And,
let me get a motion to extend the meeting for at least another 30 or minimum 30 minutes. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay. You finished, Mr. Manager? Mr. Wall?
Go ahead. You got other comments?
Got other comments?
Go ahead.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, thank you. Councilman Rolfe, I don't have a issue, but in the southwest area, I need inspections. I mean, there's some inhabitable places that I wouldn't let my son's pet animal live in. And there's some people within that geographical area that, all due respect, don't give a it's just, I mean, to bring up their building or however. And some part of this, you know, I need in my area. I'm not talking about any place there else. I don't know the historicity of that for the whole city, but there are some places in the Southwest that, some accountability need to be, and I'm just afraid if we suspend all the entirety of this, that it will, I'm not sure what other issue was raised up out of here if we suspend all of it. I understand exactly what you're trying to do, but I don't want to run the risk that we cannot enforce, especially in the Southwest, some areas, the area that really needs some attention, because if you just go down some areas, you would think that, who would give a person occupancy to live in here? It's just not there. So I don't have a problem with what you're trying to do, but I would just ask that how would it affect the area in which that has the greatest need for accountability for such as this?
No, I get it, and we rode through the city a couple weeks back, and the southwest section is probably the most neglected in the city. And I think we actually gave code some addresses to check out of buildings that were boarded up for unsafe structures, and I don't know what the findings were. I think Kate called me and asked me or told me a little bit about the updates, but this is not to affect health and safety of residents. This is to help protect property owners. If enough of these investors get upset with us, and there's multiple owners out there that have many properties, they could get frustrated with the city itself, doing business with the city. They could begin to sell off their properties, which would flood the market with inventory, which would decrease the values of our properties. So I'm not trying to do anything about health and safety, and I'm very cognizant of that. And even if you have a business license, the only requirements for inspections are once every 5 years, according to the way it's written. Single-family homes, I get it. Utilities are out to the properties almost once a month. They're reading meters. They're checking water meters. So if there's serious problems, I'm sure those will be identified through the proper channels. But to place investors who, maybe we look at the number of actual units that are attached to a property, where we go with a fourplex, we go with a multifamily. A fourplex is considered a commercial building. I think a triplex is considered a commercial building. I'm not sure, and they get charged commercial rates. So I just wanted to bring it to our attention. George, thank you for the information you had. It pretty much backs up that comment that there's 15,860 properties in our city that are not homesteaded, which means they're not getting the tax credits or the homestead exemption. So.
And one thing I wanted to also mention is that it wasn't like one day somebody decided we're going to focus on this in a big way. It just so happened that a complaint came in, and code is very careful about being accused of targeting a specific neighborhood. So as soon as that complaint came in, then they tried to balance off and went to some others. And I think the best evidence that this is not a major initiative is the number of citations that have been issued. And also the best evidence that almost nobody knows about this likely is because we only have like 50 some odd licenses. So it really is, it looks to me like when that meeting happened in 2006, everybody kind of said, look, unless we get a complaint, we're just going to do nothing one way or the other. And that's really what you have here.
I get it. I mean, this is a cow. The public can't speak at this meeting. If this was next week, this room would be packed with professionals, investors, realtors, and then we'd feel it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to avoid, is feeling the pressure from, our residents, and just nip it in the bud now. If we want to go on and discuss this later some other time and fix things, but for the people that got served already these notices, I don't know if they've all contacted code. I know some of them are kind of just waiting to see what's going to happen, and they're going to get the form letters that say, okay, you didn't respond in X amount of days, and now you got to go to the magistrate and talk to them about your fines and stuff. So, what do we do to?
Can I ask a question? What is it that you're asking us to do specifically tonight? What do you need?
What I'd like to see is that
Your recommendations?
any letters that were written or sent out to people that were requested to purchase a new business license, not ones that have them or had them in the past. Those people are already familiar with that system, and maybe they'll get mad and say, oh, you guys been charging me but not charging that guy. I don't know how that's going to work out. But the one specific lady I'm talking about, she has 100 properties. The lady's like 80 years old, and who's going to deal with that kind of stuff? Let's to stop this process now. Let's look at it, and maybe like 2006, it'll just go away. But in the meantime, I just want, if you're asking me what I'd like to see, is we'd have to make a motion to stop the process of the new business licenses that were requested this year only, and for us to look at what we should do about this in the future. That way that they don't feel any financial hardships. They're not going to be yelling and screaming at me and possibly you guys eventually, because they're going to say Larry didn't do anything, and move on from there. So
Well, could the motion be to hold in abeyance? Because it's a code, it's part of the code. So we're basically saying we're not going to apply the code. So what we can do is maybe hold off on
Suspend,
the enforcement of this till we can do some sort of workshop, because we're not going to solve this tonight. It's after 9 o'clock, and we're going to start losing our minds.
Done deal.
So I think there's clearly some sort of an issue that we need to have a much more healthy discussion on, but I think maybe the motion should be to ask the manager to instruct the code enforcement department to not proceed any further, subject to some sort of committee meeting.
simply
Some sort
on
of
the
workshop.
business license tax for new business licenses for real estate purposes, whatever the code calls for in here, for people who have more than 2 houses. Nothing else. I don't want to touch anything else. I want to be very clear that anything else that's out there, go forward and do your jobs. But this specific one is just what I'm asking for.
Okay, Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. I used to be inspector for Homestead Housing Authority, and I could tell you that this was obviously after Hurricane Andrew, this community basically turned into a rental community because what happened is that folks left, investors came and bought properties, and they bought the properties and rented them out. And guess what happened? When the boom happened, I'm pretty sure that they all sold and are now wealthy people and living a great life. And so, we got to the position where we all purchased houses, and then we lost. And so here we are again, where we're a rental community because of circumstances. The inspections are important. I think it's a tool. I agree with what the manager is saying in one point, where we need to have a tool in our toolbox in order to do our job. When I used to do these inspections, whether in the Southwest District, throughout all of Homestead, throughout all of Miami-Dade, it was very important for us inspectors to do that job, because we were just doing a minimum, which was just making sure that the quality of life for the individual renting the unit was up to federal standards. And I would go in there, and let me tell you, those homeowners, the property owners, they don't care. They try to pay me off to turn my eye. And I had to consider the people who lived in there. They were like behind the person saying, like they were waving like, please don't do it, because there were so many bad issues in the house. The lights weren't working, the water wasn't working properly. They figured they could just pay me off and they could just keep doing business. The owners, and I'm not saying this one owner, but those other owners might not care for our residents and who we represent. And we need to take that into consideration. We serve the people. If they're doing business in Homestead, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that they bought those houses on the cheap, and they are renting them at a high price. I could bet you that they're making double of what they're paying. So my question is, how much is this license we're talking about cost?
$58.
$58? $58. I mean, let's be realistic in the sense of if it's a business, they're renting them out, they're making plenty of money. $58? Come on.
It's the inspection.
It's the rest of the stuff that happens after that.
Part of doing business in Homestead. And again, a toolbox and watching out for our residents. And I'm speaking because I understand this part, the other part of it. I understand the investors, they don't like it. It's just, you're bothering me and I'm just trying to make money. But we're a city and we have to hold anyone who's doing business in the city responsible to what's happening. So I'm not in favor to suspend and what we have in place right now. We could have a discussion and come to a point as a council as a whole and have a healthy discussion, because I think that there's discussions to be had. I mean, look at right now, let's talk about Airbnb. I'm pretty sure that right now there's so many houses, they're renting out the rooms, they're doing business in the city of Homestead. We don't have no regulation in what's happening in that industry. We don't know what's going on. We have to consider the people in the communities that live in the communities. What happens if all neighborhoods start to turn into kind of Airbnb businesses? You remove that tool from our toolbox and we can't enforce anything. So, yeah, we need regulation. I would like to find out more about, thank you, Mr. Manager, for bringing that information, because I was kind of, in thought of, how did we, the question is, how did we get here? But we got here, there was a reason that we got there. And so I don't want to remove it until we have a full picture of what needs to happen and a healthy discussion about regulation that we need to put in place. And again, we have Airbnb is a big business right now. And they are, it's an app, just like Uber, list your house, rent it out, and people are making, turning those investment properties and making quadruple of what their rent is. And so I think, yeah, I'm for a discussion, but a healthy discussion and regulation, because I think that's going to affect our community. So I need some more information before I just come to a decision just to table anything or to just hold it off. If we want to kick off the discussion, as soon as possible, we've been through this before. Bring it on. So that's my position. So I'm not for or in favor of suspending anything right now. I think that those four persons that have those costs over them, work their way through it. I'm pretty sure they made a pretty penny. And if they want to sell their properties, I mean, there's a lot of people looking for to buy in properties, so I don't think there's an issue there. So that's my position.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is one of those cases where, unfortunately, I don't feel that I have enough information to take any official action tonight. I think that the issues that were raised are ones that I would like to get more information about. I'd like a chance to talk with staff and maybe get some history on kind of what the effect of this is. Because on first blush, the way I look at this is, I think for a small-time landlord, yes, this might make sense to say that it's an unfair burden if you own 4 or 5 houses, and it's kind of a part-time thing that you're doing, because you're probably going to be taking care of all those properties, we hope, but you may not be. But when you start talking about landowners that own 100 homes or 50 homes or 25, and their business is being a landlord, you run that risk then of knowing whether or not they are providing quality living space for their tenants. And so I know for myself in the Northwest, that's an issue we have with older homes and a lot of rentals. And so that's where more of the concern is for me, that I need some more education about. I need to kind of figure out how all this fits in. I mean, obviously, it's not being enforced, so it's not really something that is a make or break issue, and generally speaking, but it has been brought to light, so I just think something that we should look at, and I'm willing to look at, but I don't think I have enough information to make a decision one way or the other, at least not an educated decision, that I wouldn't question later on. So that's my only concern about having to make take action tonight, especially whether we're doing one thing or another. It's something I definitely could make a decision on, by the council meeting or by the next cow, but tonight, because I didn't have any backup information prior, it becomes difficult.
Thank you, sir. That kind of falls into the discussion we had a little bit earlier, where it's hard sometimes to show up and then get a packet at the last minute, and it's no disrespect to anybody, but, as it gets to the point where we're having to make these decisions, and there's, in the packet, it was only one page until we get here, so. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, my question is how much are the inspections when you say that they had to, what is the cost of inspection, Mr. Roth?
That I can't answer. I've heard $35. You got to have 3 of them. And then what happens is if they find something wrong, you got to correct that problem too. I'll give you an example. A guy had an inspection done the other day, unrelated to the business license tax. He had replaced the inside air conditioner, but didn't replace the outside air conditioner. So the outside air conditioner was still good at the time of the repair. When they came in to do the inspection, he had to replace both units because someone decided that because the makes and the years of those 2 units weren't the same, so that cost him $3,000. So before you know it, we start to add up all these costs. So just Shelley, real quick, I'm not asking for, the only action I'm asking for tonight is to suspend any ongoing fines or fees until we can get to the bottom of it at this point, so that process stops and they're not accruing additional fees and fines while we're going through our process. That's the only thing I'm asking for tonight.
Joe?
Yes, sir. The inspections cost $105 for all 3, the mechanical, electrical, and the plumbing. So a total cost of $105.
$105?
$105, yes, sir.
Total?
Yes, sir.
And that's for all 3?
Yes, sir.
And how many inspections do we normally have when it comes, I guess it's just depending on the business license.
Well,
how do we determine that if a person owns 3 or 4 that they need to have a license, or is it just a good faith, hope everybody comes in that has those listed properties or that amount, that they would come in and get a business license?
Well, it's essentially good faith. They would come in and let us know how many properties they have. They would sign them up. We would charge them the fee per property. And then when we give them the initial license, we would go and inspect them. And then we wouldn't go back for another 5 years.
So it's almost like, hopefully, I bought 5 properties and then I'm just going to go and tell Homestead I own 5 properties. I mean, that's just, we have no way of detailing or finding out, if they should have a business license. There's no, right? Yeah,
That's correct, right?
We have no program, no systematic, other than them saying, I'm being honest and I own 6 properties
Crystal?
coming to the city.
I'm going to let Crystal answer that.
Okay.
Hold on, Crystal. Okay, Crystal.
Normally, it's verified through the Miami-Dade County property appraisers, exactly how many properties that you own that are within the city of Homestead. So if you say you come in and you say you own 5, but you actually own 10, the code officer then would inform licensing, this person owns these amount of properties. And that's the reason that they were cited.
And since we are a county of shell companies, we can own 5 under the threshold and then start a new company, own another 2. So we really can't really identify technically the ownership of the properties or based on the individual coming in. It's just...
Right, if you had ones in different corporations' names, we don't go by the officers of the corporation, we don't go by the title holder of the property.
Okay, but in your day-to-day duties, you all don't go through all of the properties that in the city to be able to verify who owns what, unless there is somebody that comes forward and say, I've got 3 houses or what.
Exactly.
We just don't have the manpower to do that, or
No, sir.
not manpower, so.
And I think that was the issue in 2006, is staff was saying, look, in order to do this thing right, we need staff, and then there was some pushback, and then everything just we'll just limp along, and I think that's what we've been doing. And so, if you think that there's Richard and I were talking, if you think there's a possibility that you might have another discussion, we might be able to grant an extension for those that have been cited and give them some time, until you make some decisions on what you're going to do, if anything, unless you've
So
already...
my last question is this, is that based on what Councilman Roth is trying to do, these persons who have these licenses, they obtain them because they came to the city and say, I own these amount of properties. Not that we went out and determined that they owned them, but it was
Well,
based on...
if I had a guess, because we had 30 some odd citations in 2015, and we have a total of 50 some odd licenses, my guess is some of those got cited and came and got their licenses, would be my bet.
Yes, that is correct.
They got cited based on our information or
Yes.
determined that they've come
Many
in
times it's because they had other code violations at the property.
on that piece of property and then...
As the manager was mentioning, we did get a complaint in reference to absentee owners and the conditions of their properties that they were at for a specific area.
Yeah, so it's hard to kind of, okay, thank you.
And not to pile on any
Yeah, that's what
additional
you
stuff
piled it
here,
on.
but we do have from time to time retail store owners or owners of retail stores that complain that they have to get a license and they don't think that's necessary either. So if you're going to take up this whole issue of when should you have a business license and when should you inspect, all those are, those are real issues, and every city does something a little different, and reasonable minds disagree, and it's okay. Whatever you all decide, we'll do.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Shelley?
The city manager actually kind of went where I was going with it, and I think that this is kind of a bigger issue than what we're just discussing tonight. I mean, this is an issue that's been brought to light because of certain citations, but I think that this is more or less even you have an issue about whether or not the person should or should not be required to get a business license, and what is that threshold? And then the second issue seems to be that it potentially triggers an inspection if they have a business license, which isn't so bad, but then what seems to be happening is more or less what the inspectors are deeming to be problems or not be problems. And I think that's probably more the underlying issue that we're running into, because I know I've heard it from commercial businesses as well through this process, is that the inspector comes in and one inspector tells them to do one thing, they remedy what they think the problem is, to then get another inspector show up the next time when they do the reinspection and say, oh, well, that wasn't a problem ever to begin with. There's 3 other things that I've now found that are problematic. So I think the bigger issue isn't so much the business license and the inspection as it is maybe the quality control of the inspectors themselves in determining what in fact is the issue and making sure that the owners, whether it's a business owner or a renter or whatever the case might be, is being told the right thing the first time, and also taking the corrective action and not being told to correct something that they later find out they didn't need to correct and wasted money on, because I've heard that story many times as well. So I think that as we have this discussion, maybe we should have a broader discussion about that issue and try to resolve both issues, and maybe one is not the issue and the other is, but that would be where kind of I think we need to look into.
Well, and from my perspective too, we have to make a decision, is renting homes for a profit a business? If it is, then you have to quantify, does it apply to the same rules and regulations that someone who operates a grocery store or strip mall? So, from that perspective, if we just come to that, if we can come to that conclusion, the rest of this stuff should really kind of fall into place. Is owning multiple homes, renting those out, is that a business? Because if we do that, then we're halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the fight or the discussion. But right now, it's still gray as to business or not. Mr. Attorney? Hope. Go ahead.
What your code says is that single-family homes, more than 2 with the same owner. That's the way it describes when you need a license. And so that's what the code currently says. Now, you can revisit that, but that's what the code currently says. The other thing is that some of the people that have been cited, I don't know if all of them, they have applied for extensions of time, and they've been granted extensions of time. So if you're looking for a way for them to sort of, then they need to come in and apply for an extension of time again, so that these fines are not continuing to run on them.
Just in order to move the meeting forward, if we could get some sort of closure, say, just ask the manager, as a body, ask the manager to extend the process that we're in right now, the ones that are causing an issue for us, just extend that process so that they don't continue to pile on fines, and then let us talk about this further, because we're going to go nowhere with this. So is there a motion to ask the manager to just extend these code questions?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Please turn off my mic.
You can turn it off.
Oh, I can turn it off?
You can turn it off.
I see, I don't want to touch it because I'll get
No,
on.
turn it off. There you go. Tab 16, Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, turn you on, Mr. Williams.
Yes, Mayor and fellow councilmen, there is no supplemental report attached to your one sheet. But, sorry, but couldn't have any information attached because I needed some direction. What I'd like to get some understanding, and I know, Mayor, you gave me this as a kind of a task, but what I'm finding interesting is that I think without a committee or some type of ordinance in place, or to really deal with some of the issues that we have dealing with green cities or green initiatives, it is my recommendation that we establish some type of committee made up of however appointees from each person to be able to deal with these issues that are plaguing us as a community. And so I think that's really what I'm kind of hoping for and looking, that that we establish a green cities kind of committee or so.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, so we'll,
So if I need, but the attorneys would not touch my item because they needed direction from this body in order to look at producing an ordinance. So, am I right, Richard? Y'all would not even, I couldn't bring anything back to you all to.
It wasn't personal. It's
Yeah,
just
it
that.
was.
No, it wasn't. Yeah,
You pick and choose.
when we get a request to do work from a council person, we ask that it be discussed here so we can get direction to do that.
So I couldn't provide my esteemed colleagues with anything to go forward because the attorneys wouldn't help me.
okay, so Mr. Manager, can we have, someone from staff maybe compile some like information from other cities that would look at what other communities have established as far as green initiatives, the pros and cons, so we can lay some information out on the table here so that everybody can listen. And we can compare notes as to what other cities have done. Do you have anybody that can do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Mr. Shelley? No.
Being delayed for additional information, I don't need.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll compile some stats and some information on what other communities are doing, and we'll bring.
Yeah, the reason why I said, man, you tagged me to this initiative, but I'm trying to provide some kind of framework to be able to, where do we go from here, So that's what I'm looking for, and I need, I think, a committee that will tackle certain issues that plague us to make our city more green. Okay.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, can I get a time frame?
Well, I think if we could get a little clarity on, are you looking just for examples of what other cities are doing, or, because there's broad policy decisions on issues of ordinances. I'll give you an example. You could require 25% of your fleet be natural gas, for example. That has substantial cost to the city. There's other things that say everybody should get a keychain that says conserve water, right? So there's a whole slew of things that you can do. I think we just need some direction on where you're headed with this and what is it that you want, because that was the issue the attorneys had, is an ordinance with what? You want to require natural gas? Do you want to have, everybody has to have solar panels? There's a whole slew of things.
And that was why I was saying, if we take some examples of what other communities are doing, and we're not really going to recreate there's really no real need to recreate the wheel here. It's just that we wanted to, I kind of felt like the thing was, if we can make positive, effective changes to make, the city green over a process, or find other ways to make us cleaner, that was really the intent, was to try to do an exploration.
And do you want an ordinance, or do you want general ideas?
I'd like for the council to be able to see what everybody else, if there's other communities that are out there, so that we can have an open discussion about where we're going with this. If Mr. Williams is requesting a committee, I have to ask the council if they can have that committee, and we set up that structure. So that's really kind of what I'm saying, is let's get some other information that other communities have done, and let's lay it out for discussion, a point of discussion. And it's, we can do that in not the next meeting, but we could do it by the meeting after the 20th.
Next Cal?
We can do it at the Cal.
Yeah, no
Not
problem.
at the next meeting, because there's so much on that next 20th meeting. We'll go to the following Cal.
No problem.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
still here.
Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you. I want to recommend you look into Pinecrest, See Mayor Lerner and find out what's going on. Thank you.
Mr. Shelley?
Yeah, I just had clarification. So the direction you've given is not so much to look at how other cities have created committees or task force, but more or less to actually get core initiatives that some other cities have looked into, and then bring that back as a discussion item?
Yeah, we wanted to, Mr. Williams is asking for a committee.
Right.
So the question to me is, I have to present that committee to you as a board, and I just wanted to have some other similar circumstances where other communities have a similar board or similar process. And can we adopt their processes or modify their process and put it in front of this?
And that's where I wanted clarification, because what the manager was saying sounded like he was asking more about initiatives such as, like he was talking about the fleets and the gas powered and all of that, which is more about initiatives that we as the policymakers would decide on, which is great too, because I think we should work toward being more green in whatever fashion. But then I interpreted that your original request was that it was to be, like you just now enunciated, which is dealing with how other cities have created boards, task force, and what structure have they done to look at these versus the actual ordinances themselves. And that's what I want to make sure the manager has clarity on, because I think that was his
There are
question.
different things. For example, there's a whole slew of material on best practices for green cities. So those are not necessarily ordinances, they're initiatives. And then, of course, we could pull ordinances from all over the country. So I'm not really sure. So if you want a full...
But that was what I was trying to get clarification on for you, because you're talking about actual policy, core policies, core ordinances, and task force and best practices and ordinances. And I think what Councilman Williams, what the mayor had mentioned, was more or less how other cities are assembling committees, task force, to then address the policy itself. And so that's why I wanted to get clarification, because I think you were saying one thing, I heard something from him. I'm indifferent, but I want to make sure that you provide us the information we need. And so the second time the mayor spoke, it was about how other cities had created these task force, put them together. Was it a committee format? Was it a board format? Was it whatever it might have been? I think that was, so I'm just trying to get clarity myself.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, this is what I'm asking, is that a board be created of persons in Homestead by virtue appointment from the mayor, recommendation from us, to initiate a board to discuss these varieties of issues that cannot be handled by one person, but to have some open dialogue with persons who are very interested in this particular industry that will make us more greener. I'm asking that a board be created to do that the mayor would allow latitude to have recommendations from each council person to create a board to deal with whatever initiatives that they are, and that those initiatives then be brought back in writing to the council on what we can do. But I'm asking for a board to be created.
Okay. Got it. Okay, I'll bring back something for this board, this elected body to look at, okay?
I would say reach out to the League of Cities, because they've got a big thing on it.
That was the point of what I was trying to say was, there's a lot of initiative in this green, well, I'll reach out. I'll come back with something. Trust me, I promise you. Tab 17.
Motion.
Mr. Attorney? Oh, hold on. Go ahead.
The Attorney General has determined that certain manufacturers and distributors of a product that the city purchases, that a lot of cities purchase, engaged in price fixing. And there's a chance, we've been approached by attorneys that are going to engage in a class action to try to recover some of this money, so the city might be able to recover some of the money that it overpaid for this. I've spoken with Julio. I don't know that it's a huge amount of money, but there's no cost to the city, so I wanted authorization for us to get involved in this class action. There'll be no cost from us. There'll be no cost from the other attorneys. That's paid for in the event that there's a recovery, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that without the council
Is there a
approval.
motion to move it?
Move it.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Good night. Thank you.